Apocalypse. I can obtain infinite upgrades by drawing cards. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76, Tempting Beef. Captain Chu is younger than Lin Qun expected, with a square face, but eyes as sharp as an eagle. Sitting behind the desk, he was stunned at first when he heard Lin Qun's words. Then he laughed and said, "Why can't I ask this? I'm also a human being, just like you." Xiao Yi and Ko Zin's evaluation of you is quite pertinent. You are an interesting person. He is also a capable person. Captain Chu glanced at Lin Qun and said, "But don't worry, I won't ask too much. As you can see, I don't have time, and the survivor base doesn't have time either." Lin Qun nodded and said, "I understand, Captain Chu, just be frank." "Okay, actually, Commander Fu wants to see you in person, but the situation is changing now, and he is too busy to spare the time, so I have to come." Captain Chu said bluntly, "Time is precious, and you understand this, so I won't beat around the bush with you. Just get straight to the point. We want to invite you to join. We have an entire team of experts who have been studying the talents of human awakening. They can give you targeted training, and you can enjoy resources in the survivor base, and you can also get priority protection on the battlefield. Of course, you also have to provide support for our military, our experts, and our survivor base. If you like, you can move into the prison staff dormitory right away. You can have a single room, and your people can enjoy 2 people in a room, and there is a scheduled supply of hot water." What Captain Chu said was similar to what Xiao Yi said, but it was more specific. Lin Qun had made plans long ago. This little thing could not tempt him. He came here out of respect for the military. Therefore, he hesitated for 2 seconds and shook his head to refuse. "I think it is better for me to maintain the status quo. As a survivor who applied for the army, I will cooperate with the military in the battle, rather than join the military." Captain Chu stared at him and suddenly said, "You want to cooperate with the military?" Without giving Lin Qun a chance to answer, he paused, as if organizing his words, and then continued, "Mr. Lin, you are a person with strength and ideas, but I think you also understand that this is impossible. One person's strength is too small compared to the military. Even if it is the bastion who dominates the East District, it can only be invincible in the battlefield outside the East District. If it really attacks the survivor base, without their fleet to advance and retreat together, it will come to die alone. I understand, Captain Chu means that it is impossible to cooperate with the military on an equal footing." Lin Qun said, "The conditions offered by Captain Chu to me are indeed very tempting. Maybe I should agree, but my situation is indeed a bit special. I think I should choose a direction that suits me better. But please rest assured, if the bastion army is at the gates of the city, I will be the first to charge at the front line. If bastion appears outside the survivor base of the 6th prison, I will be the first to rush out and kill it." Captain Chu looked at Lin Qun for a while, and sighed. "I believe what you said. You will never think that what you said. Master Fu and I have said something similar." Lin Qun was a little surprised. Captain Chu said, "Don't worry, I won't force you to do anything. This is also what Master Fu meant. Unfortunately, times have changed. If it was before, I would definitely not give you the opportunity to choose. But now, the magic city is crumbling. We really don't have the resources and energy to train anyone. Whoever joins us can only be our warrior, and will not enjoy that much growth. However, Mr. Lin, I still want to remind you to use your abilities carefully, and don't let your power dominate your thoughts. And you must stay alive. No matter what happens, only by staying alive can you have the possibility of turning the tables. If you change your mind, you can come to me at any time." The last sentence was a farewell. Although Captain Chu did not directly participate in the battle at the front, he was also very busy. It was not easy for him to spare this little time for Lin Qun. Although they only met once, Lin Qun had a very good impression of Captain Chu. He was a person who was good at thinking, and really did things. Lin Qun did not stay for long, and went out directly. Ko Zin at the door escorted him all the way underground, before letting Lin Qun leave by himself. He seemed a little surprised that Lin Qun left directly. Lin Qun's leaving by himself meant that he rejected Captain Chu. Kaozin had never seen a similar situation. However, he still did not ask anything and just looked at Lin Qun deeply. When Lin Qun returned to the door of his cell, he found that the survivors at their door were gone. After asking, he found out that Huang Dafa had sent people to invite them away. Lin Qun was a little shocked by this treatment. He coughed dryly and said, although I just rejected Captain Chu, it's better not to let Huang Dafa know about this. Let's just let this misunderstanding remain. Everyone looked at each other and nodded. The survivors at the door were gone, but Lin Qun was still happy to be quiet. He roughly said that he rejected Captain Chu's invitation, then waved his hand and said, everyone has worked hard today, I will treat you to beef. Li Ji was surprised when he heard this. Brother, you really have beef? How come I didn't know it? It's not bad, right? How could it be bad? Lin Qun smiled and said, of course I took it when we went out this time. I checked it, and it's definitely edible and fresh. As he said that, he picked up his backpack and took out 2 pounds of packaged beef in front of everyone. This beef was naturally exchanged for the material card, and it was extremely fresh, but Lin Qun used a trick, and taking it was just an excuse. Everyone couldn't look away from the beef. Before the apocalypse, it was nothing. Who couldn't eat meat in this era? But now, these 2 kilograms of beef is an absolute feast. Li Xing said, we cook it here? Zhao Wen smiled and said, I can cook it. Do you have any seasonings? Lin Qun looked at Li Ji. Li Ji said, I'll go find someone to exchange it. As he said that, he couldn't wait to take out a pack of ham sausage and ran out to exchange it. There was nothing that couldn't be exchanged for that pack of ham sausage in this survivor base. And Lin Qun turned around and smiled. Of course, we'll cook it here. Before eating beef, he was still thinking about keeping a low profile. But now, he has already made a high profile. The movement has been made, and everyone around knows that he has a relationship with Captain Chu. So what is there to be afraid of? He directly put the pot out of the cell and cooked the meat on the spot. Over there, Li Ji also exchanged all the seasonings back with an excited look on his face. Zhao Wen seemed to be a good cook, but unfortunately, the ingredients were too limited, and there was no room for improvement. She could only use the simplest method to cook a pot of beef soup. When the aroma of the meat filled the air, everyone on this floor was excited. It was so tempting. Chapter 77. Big Defeat. Big defeat. A pot of beef, no matter how fragrant it is, can't spread far. But it can't stop the survivors from spreading it from person to person in the base. Many people gathered around, staring eagerly, drooling. They were all saying that someone was cooking beef here. So many days have passed, but for many people it feels like a few years have passed, and they almost forgot what beef tastes like. What's more, most people have no food to eat, and they are hungry. They can't even eat porridge, let alone beef. Lin Qun made quite a commotion, which attracted Huang Dafa. Huang Dafa was shocked to see the beef boiling in Lin Qun's pot. This kind of thing, that's something he can't even eat. Huang Dafa swallowed his saliva instinctively and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It's worthy of being Captain Chu's people to be able to eat beef. But he was a little surprised that Lin Qun and his people were obviously related to Captain Chu, so why did they have to stay here with ordinary survivors? But of course he couldn't ask this question, and Lin Qun and the others were in his territory, which was a blessing. He couldn't ask for more. Lin Qun saw him, thought about it, waved his hand, and prepared to let him have a bite. They not only added some seasonings to a pot of beef, but also some ham and other existing food, making a big stew with beef as a main ingredient. It was definitely enough to eat. Lin Qun was still a little ashamed of Huang Dafa. He had taken so many things from others, so it was only right for him to share some meat. But Huang Dafa was very smart. He had finally succeeded in delivering the things he had sent. If he ate Lin Qun's meat now, wouldn't it be that all the meat he had given away before was in vain? No matter how greedy he was, he couldn't eat it. Huang Dafa refused again and again, fearing that he could not control himself. He simply left in the end and only sent a team of security team members to help maintain order, to prevent any survivors from rushing to grab food at all costs. As a result, the survivors around were envious, but they didn't dare to do anything. What's more, the news that Lin Qun had the background of Captain Chu spread. Who didn't know that Lin Qun and his team had a background and a backer? In this case, who would dare to be impulsive for this pot of beef? They could only watch and smell the smell of molecular movement in the air. As for ordinary survivors, they had hardly ever fought against the Bacatans, and it was difficult for them to have a clear understanding of strength and ranking. It might not be intuitive for them to say how strong Lin Qun was, but the 3 words of Captain Chu were enough to deter them and make them behave themselves. They didn't dare. There were still survivors who wanted to exchange various things for something to hold, such as big diamond rings and gold bars. There were even hot girls who took the initiative to come up and said that, as long as they could get a bite of meat, they would do anything. There were a few whose looks and figures were even better than Zhao Wen, almost at the star level. But unfortunately, Lin Qun refused them all. Can diamond rings and gold bars be eaten as food? Girls, isn't that a waste of energy? Moreover, Ni Wensheng also stood up and took his younger brothers to stand guard for Lin Qun and others and drove the survivors who were watching outside. This made Lin Qun feel a little embarrassed. This Ni Wensheng was too enthusiastic. He was a professional as a younger brother. Lin Qun thought about it and said, "Why don't you come and have a bite?" Ni Wensheng shook his head again and again. "Brother, I came here to help voluntarily. I don't mean that. If you don't mind, you can give me the soup after you finish eating, and we brothers will share it." Ni Wensheng was very sensible. He came to show his kindness. If he ate Lin Qun's meat, would it still be called showing kindness? But the younger brothers around him only swallowed their saliva when they heard it. Being able to drink a mouthful of meat soup is also the envy of others. When did meat soup become so valuable? Lin Qun was a little emotional. But he didn't insist on anything, because he couldn't help it. Humans, especially the Chinese, are foodies who inherit blood. Several of them gathered around a pot of beef and ate and drank a lot. On the side, the survivors stared with their eyes wide open. Some of them couldn't help but stop watching and turned away, as if they had been hit by something. Some of the relatively wealthy survivors looked at the biscuits and sausages in their hands and immediately felt that they were not delicious. What Lin Qun and his friends didn't notice was that Fan Wenchuan and Lu Hui were also among the crowd, looking at this side with fiery eyes. Lu Hui whispered, "Brother Fan, no wonder they look down on us. It turns out that they have the background of Captain Chu." Fan Wenchuan beside him was also in a trance. This was something he hadn't expected. The background they relied on, Ni Wensheng, the boss, now went to curry favor with Lin Qun and his friends. Lu Hui's face was a little depressed and unwilling, and he said, "Brother Fan, it's a bit strange. Look, it seems that they are centered on that Lin Qun. Isn't Li Xing the real master? And that Captain Chu seems to be coming for that Lin Qun." They thought that Li Xing was the master who had the ability to shoot anyone in the head by pointing at him. Fan Wenchuan just shook his head. He was not very clear. He just stared into the distance. He thought about what happened in Longcheng Daijing community and later. He pondered for a moment and said, "I'm afraid we have all misjudged this Lin Qun. He is definitely not simple." Lu Hui looked at him in surprise. Lin Qun has become a well-known celebrity in and outside the survivor base today. He ate a pot of beef and his face was greasy, which made everyone in the survivor base very greedy. When Lin Qun and his friends finished eating, the survivors around them had almost left. Lin Qun also kept his promise and left the soup for Ni Wensheng and others. Of course, Lin Qun did not favor one over the other. He also gave some soup to those sent by Huang Dafa, which made those people grateful to Lin Qun. No matter whether Lin Qun had any relationship with him, they all became enthusiastic and respectful to Lin Qun. The others were jealous of the broth, and the younger brothers who followed Ni Wensheng to maintain order were also very happy. They were so excited that they took it back. They shouted that they wanted to cook something else with this pot of soup. Although there was no meat in the broth, it was priceless in this situation. Someone was lucky enough to get some shredded meat in the soup and was very excited. Although Ni Wensheng was also hungry, he still remembered what he was doing. Before leaving, he said repeatedly, "Brother, if you have anything, call me at any time. We are on the first floor. My people and I will be there at any time." Lin Qun looked at this guy's enthusiastic expression and had the urge to hold his forehead. He could probably understand Huang Dafa's kindness, but this Ni Wensheng, what on earth was he looking for? And the situation on his side was also reported to Huang Dafa. Huang Dafa was also surprised. Mr. Lin, did he share the remaining broth with the people I sent? The person who reported to him nodded repeatedly. I also got a bowl. It was so fragrant. I didn't expect it. Huang Dafa looked thoughtful and said, this Mr. Lin is really a person worth making friends with. At this time, various news were flying around in the survivor base. It was said that the Xingxing survivor base had already started a full-scale war with the Bakatans. Xia King and Qi Zichun, two famous masters in the East District, all went to support, and the East District 6th Prison Survivor Base and the Army Hospital survivors sent a large number of troops to reinforce. The battle over there entered a white-hot stage from the beginning. The attitude of the East District battlefield was extremely clear. Defend the Xingxing survivor base to the death. Defending the Xingxing survivor base means defending the other two survivor bases. Although Lin Qun and his men had temporarily retreated, there were still a large number of troops fighting on the external battlefield. In addition to the front battlefield, other areas were already fighting. Half of the East District was in the flames of war. In the survivor base, there are still many survivors eager to go out and help. Lin Qun also asked Zhao Yi and others, but the military coordinated the dispatch, and Zhao Yi's message to Lin Qun was also waiting. Lin Qun knew that, even if he had the ability to fight against an army on his own, he would not be of much significance to the military in the overall battle situation. Even if he had cards such as gigantism, he would only be cannon fodder on the battlefield, with no room for play, let alone killing the Bakatans or facing Bakayan. He would jump out, or gigantism 1 second, and be beaten into a sieve the next second. Even if he gigantism, he would have to be blown to pieces by missiles. Because of this, the tasks they performed were all marginal harassment and blocking, and their individual advantages could only be brought into play on a small battlefield. On the front battlefield, the coalition forces of the three survivor bases and the Bakatan forces were in confrontation. Both sides were firing artillery fire, intensive shooting and bombing. It was a battlefield of modern thermal weapons. The use of a single person was extremely effective. A strong survivor was almost the same as an artilleryman. Instead, he might be killed by stray bullets, or killed by the rapidly mobilized firepower. On the front battlefield, even a strong Bakayan never flew out of his sailing ship to show his personal force. This can be seen. What they can do now is to wait for the military's dispatch and not cause trouble to the military. But Lin Qun knew that in the current situation, they would not be free for a long time, so he prepared to take the time to rest, since there was no mission for the time being. It was already past 11 o'clock. After waking up from a nap, he could just look at the settlement reward and then take all the contribution points with the settlement reward. However, he didn't sleep for long before he was awakened by the earth-shaking scene. The whole prison building seemed to tremble. Lin Qun opened his eyes suddenly. 015. The first thing I saw was his settlement ranking. He was actually second today. He received a full 20 points of settlement bonus. But he was not very happy. Instead, he felt a surge of intense uneasiness in his heart. At this moment, before he stood up, let alone had time to see how the ranking changed specifically, he heard a shout outside, heart-wrenching, desperate and terrified, infinite panic, sweeping across the entire survivor base like a tsunami. Big defeat. Big defeat. The emerging survivors were captured. The coalition forces of the three survivor bases were defeated, and Qi Zichun died in battle. Qi Zichun died in battle. This book will be on the shelves this Friday, which is the early morning of September 1st. I hope that all readers will come to support it by then. I hope everyone can support the genuine version as much as possible, because now Gideon will only have full attendance if the average subscription meets the standard. Thank you Liangcha. Thank you all for your support along the way. The Battle of the Magic City is coming to an end. I hope everyone can follow this book all the way. Chapter 78, 8 consecutive draws online. Lin Qun almost thought he had heard wrong at first, but he soon realized that this was the truth. In the past hour or so, the situation in the East District of Magic City has changed dramatically. On the leaderboard, many names in the top 100 have disappeared, and at the very top, Qi Zichun, who has dominated the East District rankings since the outbreak of the Doomsday until last night, has also disappeared. The first place has become the second place, and I'm still working. Lin Qun moved up from the third place to the second place. Outside the survivor base, there was already some commotion. The news spread quickly, and in farther places, it seemed that there were bastions broadcasting, announcing to the entire East District that they had broken through the emerging survivor base. Lin Qun was in a trance for a moment. This is war. The first place in the East District is nothing more than cannon fodder on the battlefield. Once the army is defeated and a front collapses, so many people will be finished. There were quite a few people outside. Leo Wu squeezed out and said, "Brother, you guys got up too? We all know. The bastions have spread the word everywhere that they have massacred the city. And all 770,000 people in the emerging survivor base have been massacred. Their next target is us." A look of panic also appeared in Leo Wu's eyes. His pupils were dilated, and his body was shaking slightly. Maybe he didn't even know he was shaking. Seeing the disaster coming, who can not panic? Most people are full of hope for the survivor base, thinking that they can survive here, but who can think of this situation now? People outside are gathering downstairs and at several windows. Some want to ask about the situation, some want to escape from the survivor base, and some are determined to escape from the survivor base. Lin Qun didn't say anything, walked silently in the crowd, and looked out. Just then he saw in the distant sky that the 3 sailing ships of the bastions had increased to 5. The fire in the direction of Xingxing Square was more intense than ever before. The field of vision was full of rising flames, but Lin Qun noticed that in the overall ranking of the East District, the total number of bastions contribution points did not increase significantly. Where did these 770,000 contribution points go? Lin Qun didn't know. He walked through the crowd and saw many panicked faces. At the door below the survivor base, there were even a large number of survivors who wanted to get out. In their opinion, the 6th prison survivor base, which had now become the second target of the bastions, was doomed to die, and there was no way to defend it. Staying here is waiting to die. Let me out. Let me out. The survivors wanted to rush out in large numbers, and chaos broke out inside the survivor base. This seemed to be a replay of the end of the world. The order that the survivor base had been struggling to maintain these days was showing signs of collapse under panic. The military personnel and the security team took the initiative. Lin Qun also saw Huang Dafa. Huang Dafa was very polite to Lin Qun, but he also reminded them, it's better not to move outside now. These survivors are crazy. They don't know what to do, so they can do anything. Huang Dafa also tentatively asked Lin Qun if he knew some inside information. But Lin Qun didn't know, just shook his head and returned to his cell. Nothing can bring people greater fear than death. Panic is spreading rapidly in the survivor base. Various news are also flying all over the sky. Some people say that the bastions use some kind of black technology weapons to tear apart the defense line of the emerging survivor base. Others say that Bastion took the lead and blocked countless shells, paving the way for the bastions and breaking through the survivor base in one fell swoop. There is also a saying that Qizichuan went deep into the enemy alone and almost killed Bastion, but he died tragically in the end. No one knows what happened. The military broadcast in the entire survivor base that the defense of the survivor base will be strengthened and all survivors will remain calm. But unfortunately, the results were minimal. These appeals were not as useful as the practical efforts of the members of the security team outside. Although there is news that the next target of the bastions is our survivor base, they have not moved yet. The truth of this news cannot be confirmed for the time being. Brother Lin, let's. Li Ji also seemed a little uneasy. Lin Qun said, let's wait and see. Anyway, we just saw that the 5 bastion sailing ships have not moved yet. The situation is not clear yet. Most of them are rumors now. We are confused. It is better to rest well and get enough energy. Whether it is fighting or retreating, there are ways. Lin Qun seemed to be the backbone of the team. When he spoke, everyone nodded and calmed down a little. Now it is a mess. Even if you go to find platoon leader Zio or squad leader KO, you may not be able to find them, let alone inquire about the news. Lin Qun has shown his strength. He estimated that, if something really happens, the military will come to him. It is just a waste of time to mess up. Instead of being so flustered, it is better to figure out your own affairs first. Lin Qun was in the corner, closed his eyes, and continued to draw cards. With the reward calculation, his total contribution points reached 90. This time, he was going to draw 8 cards in a row. Crazy card drawing. Draw 8 times first. Leave 10 contribution points for emergencies. 10 points, basically enough. No more. The rest, all used to draw cards. Obviously, a disaster is coming, and the first thing to do is to draw cards quickly to improve strength. Lin Qun's ability was activated. 80 contribution points were deducted. Draw, draw, draw. Lin Qun rubbed his hands, muttering in his heart, hoping that he could draw a good card this time. Draw 8 times directly, and still can't draw a good card? What surprised Lin Qun was that this time, he drew a good thing in the first round of card drawing. Name, Iron Blood Civilization Technology Shoulder Cannon. Type, item card grade, F class. Description, this is an Iron Blood plasma weapon. The turret is 23 centimeters long, weighs 0.6 kilograms, is equipped with adaptive loading and automatic aiming devices, has tracking function, and carries 11 rounds of ammunition. Do you want to materialize? This is the shoulder cannon of the Star Hunter Iron Blood Warrior. There are 11 rounds of charge. Lin Qun also has an impression of this thing, a terrifying plasma weapon. One shot can even destroy an adult alien. And it can automatically track and aim at the enemy and does not require any technical content from the operator. 11 bullets means that 11 Bakatans can be killed. This is definitely a killer weapon to fill Lin Qun's shortcomings. With it, shotguns can be retired. With automatic search, Lin Qun can achieve eyes behind the back and shoot at 360 degrees. However, here, Lin Qun is not ready to materialize first. Because it is useless to rush to materialize now. There is no place and target to test the power of this shoulder cannon. You can materialize it and mount it on your body when no one is around. The screen moved, and soon, the second card also emerged. It was a supply card. Compared with the Iron Warrior weapon in front, this supply card seemed a bit mediocre. Name, Fresh Tyrian *10. Type, supply card. Description, use this item card to get 10 Tyrians. Do you materialize? The description is also very simple. In the picture of the card, there are also 10 Tyrians neatly drawn. The painting style is fresh, the product is capable, and the quality and quantity are guaranteed. Each Tyrian is heavyweight and quality grade. Lin Qun's mouth twitched when he saw it. He thought, good guy, the Tyrian freedom that could not be realized before the doomsday has now been realized. Of course, it must be said that this Tyrian is also an absolute hard currency in the doomsday. In fact, fruit itself is a very hard currency, not to mention that this is Tyrian. Lin Qun put away the cards of the 10 Tyrian bombs and moved his eyes. The third card was slowly emerging. Lin Qun narrowed his eyes and looked closely and found that it was a duplicate card. Name, Kyankan Bag. Type, item card grade, F level. Description, use this item card to obtain an F level Kyankan bag, which contains 1 cubic meter of space. It can be opened or closed by mental power to store and retrieve items. Is it materialized? This. Can you still draw a duplicate item card? Lin Qun pondered for a moment and realized that this was not impossible. Items are not unique. However, although Lin Qun had this Kyankan bag before, this second one was still very useful to Lin Qun because as the number of things increased, Lin Qun's things gradually ran out of space. The backpack he originally carried on his back as a cover-up now began to really hold things. For example, the vibranium shield was now in his backpack. There were also some other things. After all, a cubic meter of space was too small. But with the second Kyankan bag, this problem could be solved. Lin Qun didn't have to hang 2 Kyankan bags on his waist. He could just throw 1 Kyankan bag into another Kyankan bag, which was equivalent to expanding the space of 1 Kyankan bag. However, it was not convenient to shuffle things here, so Lin Qun materialized it first and prepared to shuffle it later. Lin Qun held the Kyankan bag in his hand, Thinking about something, he drew 2 space magic weapons, both of which were F-level Kyankan bags. He speculated that this should have nothing to do with his luck, but should be related to the prize pool of the card he drew. His current talent level is the 1st level, and perhaps the best space storage item he can draw is this Kyankan bag. It is also necessary to improve the talent level as soon as possible. After putting away the Kyankan bag, Lin Qun calmed down and looked at the 4th card. The feeling of 8 consecutive draws is really good. Lin Qun has drawn 3 cards, and there are still 5 cards to go. Is this the joy of Krypton Gold card drawing? At this time, the 4th card was slowly emerging. The familiar card face appeared. This is another card from the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Name, Survival Treasure Card. Type, Effect Card Grade, D Class. Description, this effect card must be activated when the resurrection from the dead situation occurs. When a creature of your ace is resurrected from the dead, you can get 2 extra card draw opportunities without spending contribution points. This is a D-class effect card from the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Lin Qun looked at this card and his eyes lit up slightly, because this card can obviously be chained with the resurrection of the dead. When the dead of your ace are resurrected, you can get the survival treasure card, which directly ignores the contribution point consumption and draws 2 cards. Combined with the resurrection of the dead, this is simply a magical skill to turn the tables. Lin Qun realized that this card seemed to have been changed. In the original work, it seemed that it could only allow the user to draw another card, which was equivalent to a 1 card for 1 card, but with the current changes, using this card can directly draw 2 cards. Lin Qun materialized this card and put it together with the resurrection of the dead card. These 2 cards are the biggest trump cards in Lin Qun's hand. They are life-saving things. They will not be used until the critical moment. Lin Qun's eyes moved, and he continued to look down with some expectation. With the emergence of the 4th card, the card drawing process ended, and the talent skill was activated for the 5th time. The 5th card was also slowly emerging in front of Lin Qun. The moment Lin Qun saw the card, he thought he had drawn another card from the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! But when he looked closely, he found that it was wrong. The style of this card, and the text, isn't this clearly a card from 3 Kingdoms? I saw that on the card face of the 5th card drawn by Lin Qun. On the main yellowing style card, there was a figure of a person and a huge flash word on it. This was a flash card in the 3 Kingdoms card game. When others kill, using flash can avoid damage and avoid blood loss. Can you draw this? Lin Qun's expression and eyes moved, and he quickly looked at what effect this thing had. After reading it, Lin Qun's expression became even weirder. Name, Dodge. Type, Consumable Skill Card, Effect Card Grade, E level. Description, this skill card needs to be activated when facing an attack. Using this skill card, you can successfully dodge a card that can be dodged in theory. The dodge method can be carried out in a way that violates certain physical laws and objective reality. Special note, as long as the 3 Kingdoms are not destroyed, I can dodge. Note, this is a consumable skill card that can only be used once and disappears after use. This is a skill card, but it is a consumable skill card. Lin Qun's expression was a little weird. He thought this card was a bit tricky at first glance, but after a closer look, he found that the effect of this E-level card was extremely terrifying. According to the special notes and description, as long as it is an attack that can be avoided in theory, it can be dodged, and it can also violate the laws of physics. If this is not a magic card, what is it? If it is a fatal attack, no matter how powerful the existence is, no matter how outrageous the attack is, as long as it can be avoided in theory, it can be dodged. So, how many attacks can there be in this world that are theoretically unavoidable? A life-saving skill. Unfortunately, this card can only be used once. It is a consumable skill card. This may be the reason why it is E-level. Otherwise, it would not be too much of an A-level card for this effect. As the 5th card emerges, the 6th card is about to be drawn. Chapter 79, Remarks on the Release. This book will be available tomorrow, Friday, September 1st, at midnight. I will probably update the VIP chapters around midnight, and try to update as much as possible. The specific amount of updates depends on how much I can write tonight. I also hope that all readers can come to support the genuine version and subscribe to the genuine version. Because where the Kidian can get full attendance rewards is closely related to subscriptions. The author is not young anymore. It is a lie to say that I don't need money. I really need this full attendance reward. I hope everyone can support subscriptions as much as possible. Thank you for your continued support. This book may have some unsatisfactory aspects in the early stage, but I will try my best to correct them in my studies and present a wonderful story to everyone as much as possible. Moreover, I will try to update as much as possible on the day of listing, and after listing, I will try to ensure that there will be 6,000 words updated every day. Before listing, it was 4,000 per day. The author also wanted to update 10,000 words, but he is really a social animal and has limited time to code. Of course, I will try to update as much as possible when I have time, and I will also add more if I get any rewards. Finally, Liangcha would like to thank everyone for their continued support again, and I hope to accompany you all the way in the future. Chapter 80 An Indescribable Call. Lin Qun did not go out to check, nor did he rush to leave the survivor base. Because he knew very well that the Bastions would attack this survivor base today, and he would run away. Tomorrow they would attack that place, and he could run away again, but what would happen in the end? This is very similar to eating chicken. When the circle shrinks to the end, even if you are a coward, you still cannot win the final victory without the skills of fighting. You can only rely on luck and occasionally win chicken. No matter what the situation is, the difference between them and the Bastions is that either you kill me or I kill you. Maybe when he first heard the news, he was also panicked and frightened. That is human instinct, but as long as he calmed down, he knew what to do. Lin Qun glanced at Li Ji and others who looked a little uneasy and said, "Wait a little longer. When the commotion outside is almost over, we will go and ask about the situation and see what is going on. Then we can make the next plan. Whether to leave or stay depends on the specific situation, especially the details of the battle of the survivor base in Xingxing Square and the military's subsequent arrangements for the entire 6th survivor base. However, the survivor base is short of manpower, and it is very chaotic outside. If they go to ask now, they may not be able to find anyone. They may still be like before, mixing with those ordinary survivors and wasting time. This is also the reason why Lin Qun just retreated to draw the card first. If you go to ask now, it may take the same time to get the information as if you go to ask later. This has nothing to do with whether you have a background or know them. Li Ji calmed down at this time and said, "Yes, Brother Lin, you are right. Doesn't the military have a more strategic vision than us survivors? If we should run, the military will definitely let us run. Otherwise, why did they build this survivor base? Isn't it just to protect everyone? Is it to pack up our heads and send them to the Bastions? Besides, no matter how fast the Bastions are, they can't defeat us in a short time. The military must consider the survival of more people. Let's not be confused by other people's panic." Lin Qun also nodded. He moved his eyes back to the card drawing. 8 consecutive draws. The 6th card is emerging. Lin Qun's heart is lifted. This card is familiar content. Name, Fire Talisman, *3, type, consumable item card grade, F level. Description: use this item card to obtain 3 simple fire talismans. Smear blood on them and throw them out for immediate use and immediately release a fire attack spell. Do you want to materialize? Drawing the fire talisman is neither good nor bad. After all, this thing is still amazingly powerful. Lin Qun only has 1 left of the 3 he drew before. Drawing 3 will make it 4. What he lacks most now is the ability to replenish his combat power. The 6th card came into Lin Qun's hand, and the 7th card also quickly emerged. This time, the moment Lin Qun saw this card, he was delighted. It's a skill card, and it's a skill card for the counter type. Lin Qun's eyes lit up, and he saw that on the 7th card he drew, there was a boundless sky and a desolate beach covered by the sky. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and it seemed that some terrifying, indescribable shadow was rolling and boiling in it. But upon closer inspection, it seemed that he existed not only in the sky, but also in the deep sea far away from the beach. It seemed that there was also an indescribable shadow, as if the ocean was his reflection, and the sky was also the reflection. He cast his eyes between the sky and the ocean. On the beach, there was a half-human, half-monster with a distorted posture and a hideous face. The appearance was terrifying, and the style of the entire card was filled with a weird atmosphere. Just looking at it made me feel physically uncomfortable. The content of this card is: name, unspeakable call, type, skill card, description. Using this skill requires consumption of dark energy. The amount of dark energy consumed depends on the target strength of the recipient. Designate any living or non-living target and activate this skill to make the target feel the call of the unspeakable existence and undergo drastic mutation. The mutated target has a greater chance of mutating into a deep diver and a smaller chance of mutating into other weird or causing unknown existence. To pay attention and descend. The mutated creature will obey the order of the caster, but its lifespan will be greatly shortened. Unspeakable call. Lin Qun looked at this description with glowing eyes. This is a very terrifying ability, equivalent to directly turning the target into a servant and under one's control. What is this? No soldiers or horses. The enemy helps me build them. However, this mutated servant can obey my command. So what am I? An unspeakable God's favored one? Lin Qun suddenly fell into deep thought. But Lin Qun still chose to load this skill. The strange power of this skill is unquestionable, and it is also in short supply for Lin Qun. After loading, Lin Qun had a very strange feeling. It seemed that a terrifying breath had settled in his body. By guiding this breath, he could release an indescribable call. At the same time, he also felt the existence of dark energy. Just like Li Ji's description, when he asked Li Ji before, there were streams of wonderful heat flowing in his body along with the blood. This means that he can now use this indescribable call skill. Of course, it is definitely not possible to try it on living things. There are only 5 of them in this room. He can't turn Li Ji into a deep diver, but this skill can still be used on non-living things. Lin Qun noticed that in the description, this skill seems to cause drastic mutations when it is used on non-living targets. However, Lin Qun was not in a hurry to test it. He planned to check his dark energy value first, because he thought of the analysis that Li Ji and others had made about different people and different talents needing dark energy and energy. This time, it seems that he can verify it on himself. Sure enough, a new dark energy column appeared on Lin Qun's attribute panel. Name, Lin Qun level 9, 8550/11,000, strength 18 agility, 16 constitution, 32 stamina, 27/30, dark energy, 9/9. As expected, the dark energy panel has been opened, but Lin Qun's talent in dark energy seems not as high as Li Ji's. Dark energy has no basic attributes, and there is no additional dark energy bonus when upgrading 1 point of dark energy at level 1 and 9 points of dark energy at level 9. I just don't know how many times can I use the unspeakable calling with 9 points of dark energy. Lin Qun now has only this one skill that consumes dark energy, so he can save all the dark energy for this skill. I can try it later. There is still one more card to draw, so I will finish it first. Lin Qun is a little excited. He drew a lot of good cards today, especially this unspeakable calling, which makes Lin Qun look forward to this last card draw. The talent skill is activated. Lin Qun's eyes are full of expectation, watching the cards on the screen slowly emerge. Then, damn it, Li Ji and others in the room turned their heads in surprise and looked at Lin Qun, not knowing what was going on. Lin Qun was sitting there fine. Why did he suddenly curse? Lin Qun just laughed dryly and looked at the last card he had drawn. With the last card, he was possessed by a non-African. Chapter 81. There is a monster in the bathroom. Name, black charcoal, asterisk 10. Type, supplies card grade, F grade. Description, a piece of ordinary black charcoal, nothing special in actual use. Is it materialized in the prison cell? Looking at this item card, Lin Qun was dumbfounded. This seemed to be the most outrageous item card he had ever drawn. Moreover, black charcoal was also F grade. This face was too black. I think F grade should be the lowest grade. There is no lower rating. However, it is normal to draw such a card. His ability is to extract various things from the earth he came from. Black charcoal is indeed a supply, nothing wrong. And people gave him 10 yuan. After so many times, it is impossible that every time I draw a good card, I can use the card. At least, this talent ability draws cards. There is no thank you for patronage. Lin Qun resisted the urge to spend his last 10 contribution points and make another gambler's impulse. He stopped in time, took a look, stood up, and said, I'm going to the bathroom and take a look at the situation outside. If the situation is better, I will go to Xiao Yi or squad leader Ko to ask about the situation. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, less than an hour and a half after the Xingxing Square survivor base was breached. The sky outside was dark red. Only one of the 5 Bastion sailing ships moving towards this side, but the speed was very slow. Obviously, at least for now, the situation has not taken a sharp turn for the worse. The panic in the survivor base has also been significantly reduced. No one is attacking the official of the survivor base anymore. Most of the survivors are calm and quiet, but no one is sleepy anymore. The war is coming, and the storm is coming. Lin Qun came to the bathroom, actually wanting to test his ability. An indescribable call. He must master the abilities of these new cards as soon as possible to ensure that they can play the greatest role on the battlefield. He didn't try it in his cell because he wasn't sure about this skill. If he made something incredible, it would be bad if he accidentally hurt Li Ji and the others. This shouldn't take too long. There are too many people in the survivor base, and the toilet resources are still a bit tight at this point. There are also quite a few people. Fortunately, Lin Qun quickly got a pit. He took out a gel pen that he had gotten from the supermarket from his Kyankan bag. This thing is not as important as food. Lin Qun only has this one. Lin Qun directly released an indescribable call to it. It was a very strange feeling. He felt as if a force was drawn out of his body. It was a mixture of dark power and dark energy heat flow, and it was suddenly injected into the gel pen. He noticed that a little dark energy was deducted. According to Li Ji's rules, dark energy can be naturally restored after consumption. It can be restored a little in about half an hour, and the recovery of dark energy does not require special rest. Even if you keep moving or fighting, it will be restored after a certain period of time. The gel pen suddenly shook. Lin Qun stared at the pen intently. 1 second passed. 2 seconds. Did I open it the wrong way? Or did I use the wrong thing? Lin Qun thought about it, and if that didn't work, he would take out a sausage to try. But just when Lin Qun took out the sausage, he suddenly found that the gel pen suddenly moved. It first hit the ground, and then it stood up by itself. There was no change in appearance, but it bounced on the ground and hit the bathroom door. Without any external force, it came to life by itself. What surprised Lin Qun even more was that after the collision, it bounced on the ground and immediately rolled over, changed its way, and rolled out directly from under the crack of the door. Lin Qun was dumbfounded. His gel pen was alive. Although there was no obvious substantial change, it was alive. And it ran out by itself. Lin Qun was stunned for a while, and then there was a burst of screams outside. Damn, am I seeing right? There is a pen jumping on the ground? Monster! Monster! There is a monster! You are not seeing right. There is a monster. It might be the electronic reconnaissance equipment of the Bastions. Kill it! Kill it! The bathroom was in chaos in an instant. Lin Qun reacted quickly and was ready to stop it immediately. Can't he give orders? Lin Qun's mind moved, and he silently said, find a place to hide, find a place to hide. This seemed to work, and a voice came from outside. It ran away. Stop it, it wants to hide. Lin Qun pushed the door open and prepared to go out to check if the pen could run away. But as soon as he opened the door, he was stunned by the scene. The big men in the bathroom surrounded it and were desperately chasing and blocking it. The scene was so beautiful. The pen was very obedient and tried its best to hide, but its IQ seemed not very high, and it was struggling. Lin Qun had to silently give another order, run outside. The neutral pen suddenly jumped. Then it was suddenly pinched by a big hand, and with a snap, it was crushed. Lin Qun raised his head stiffly and saw the tall Ni Wensheng walking in. It was he who ended the sinful life of the pen that had caused trouble in the bathroom. But Ni Wensheng frowned. Strange. There is obviously no device inside. This may be a conspiracy of the Bakatans. But don't worry, I have taken it, and will hand it over to the experts above for a search later. The people around were very happy. Only Lin Qun in the corner had a sad look in his eyes. My pen. Unfortunately, his mumbling was drowned out by the voices of the people, and no one heard it. The security team came quickly and took the pen away, ready to hand it over to the experts for analysis. However, the experts at the survivors' base were destined to be unable to analyze anything. They could only be shocked to find that the pen that had come to life did not have any electronic devices to drive it. Nearby, Ni Wensheng also saw Lin Qun, clapped his hands to shake off a pile of residue, and said with a smile, "Brother Lin, you also came here after hearing the news? You don't have to do this kind of trivial matter yourself, just leave it to me." Lin Qun's expression was complicated. However, after this attempt, Lin Qun also had a certain understanding of his new skill. It can indeed mutate creatures and objects, but the IQ of the mutated things is not very high, and the price-performance ratio of the mutated objects is not high. Or it can be used directly on the Bakatans. Turn them into half-human, half-fish thugs for your own use. This is a good skill for fighting in a group battle. It really turns enemies into friends. With this experience, I can directly apply it on the battlefield next time. Lin Qun was pondering here. At this time, Li Ji also came to the bathroom. He glanced at Ni Wensheng and said to Lin Qun, "Brother Lin, platoon leader Zhao and squad leader Ko are here." Squad leader Ko said that he was instructed by Captain Chu to convey the instructions of Division Commander Fu Kie and wanted to see you. Lin Qun was not surprised by this. After all, his situation was special and different from that of ordinary survivors. But what he didn't expect was that the military was faster than he thought. Before he even went there, they had already come to his door. And the ones who came were Kaozin and Xiao Yi. They might have other intentions. Let's go back. Lin Qun took a step. Ni Wensheng watched eagerly from behind. "Brother, call me anytime if you need anything." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 80 To the Militarist Choice. When Lin Qun came back, Xiao Yi and Kaozin were already standing in his cell. Several survivors were curious and wanted to peek, but they were stopped outside by the guards brought by Kaozin. Lin Qun came back, closed the door, and said, "You two should have a seat." Kaozin nodded and said, "You should have heard about the situation at the Xingxing Square survivor base, right?" Lin Qun frowned. "It's really..." "Yes, the Xingxing Square survivor base has fallen. It's actually nothing to say now. In this battle, our plan is actually more urgent than what we announced to the outside world. We want to eat up the 3 Bakatan sailing ships, because the main force of the 19th Army stationed in the Magic City is completely at a disadvantage in the central city, but because of the early landing, the Magic City was blocked, and a large number of our troops stationed in Shanghai have not yet come in. They are called the main force of the army, but in fact they have not reached that standard. If we want to reverse the situation, we must achieve results and advantages in the marginal battlefield. We have prepared 3 high-yield fuel air bombs, but unfortunately, Kaozin paused here and then changed the subject, saying, "But the reality is not as exaggerated as the base said. The emerging survivor base still has resistance. They have held back the fleet of Bakatan in the East District. Although they have threatened that the next target is a 6th prison survivor base, they cannot attack the city in a short time." Lin Qun and others looked at each other. Kaozin's words contained too much information, and they were all a little frightened. Because they are located in the East District, on the edge of the Magic City, the real overall situation of the Magic City is not only unknown to them, the survivors, but also to many ordinary soldiers. It has always been vague. They only know that the main forces of Bakatan and the main forces of the military have been fighting in the central district. But no one is particularly clear about the specific situation, how many troops the military has, what the strength of the Bakatan people is, how the troops are dispatched, and how the battle is carried out. But what can be confirmed is that what they are facing in the East District is actually just the impact zone of this war. Kaozin's words further confirmed this information. Then, what do you two mean by coming here? Lin Qun got straight to the point. Are you here to tell us the next plan for the 6th prison survivor base? Kaozin and Xiao Yi looked at each other. It was Kaozin who spoke again. Yes, Mr. Lin, this is exactly what Commander Fu meant, and he authorized us to tell you this information. Let me first tell you the final result of the high-level meeting of the survivor base that just ended 15 minutes ago. We will draw out a regiment from the 1.5 division stationed at the 6th prison survivor base to arrange for the survivors to start evacuating and dispersing in 10 hours, and the rest will be stationed at the 6th prison survivor base to fight the Bastions to the death to the last man. Kaozin spoke very quickly, but his words made everyone change color slightly. Li Xing couldn't help but blurt out, "Evacuate. Where to evacuate? To the East District Army Hospital Survivor Base. Why don't you evacuate?" Li Xing's inference seemed to be the most normal one. Abandoning the 6th prison and retreating to the military hospital, the two troops joined forces to resist the Bastions. However, in the face of Li Xing's question, Xiao Yi and Kaozin were both silent. The silence lasted for about 2 seconds, and Lin Qun reacted and asked in a low voice, "You said to evacuate and disperse, so there is nowhere to go, right? All the survivors here must be disbanded on the spot after evacuation." Kaozin looked at him and nodded slowly. "This, you don't care?" Li Ji asked in surprise. "Mr. Lin, I will only tell you the following words, and only you can know, and never tell anyone." Kaozin said with difficulty, "The East District is no longer good. We are said to have 1.5 divisions here, but now the garrison at the 6th prison survivor base cannot even make up a full division of troops, and the same is true for the military hospital survivor base. We can't provide protection. And as long as the troops exist, we will be the first priority target of the Bastions. So, the base's general meaning is that, since we can't protect the survivors, we should evacuate the survivors. We will fight the Bastions to the death. We will hold out as long as we can and consume as much of them as we can. This is the last thing we can do. This plan has also been approved by the higher-ups. This is the last thing we can do. The remaining evacuated survivors can only rely on themselves. If possible, we don't want to give up anyone." There was a hint of sadness and despair in his tone. Li Xing murmured, "Even if the military is the priority of the Bastion's attack, the military has been killed. The East District is so small, and the Magic City is so small. Where can the remaining survivors evacuate themselves? Where can they run without being found?" Neither Kaozin nor Xiao Yi answered this question. Because by the time the moment Li Xing assumed came, the Magic City military should have collapsed completely, and they might all be gone. First the military was killed, then the survivors. There were more and more Bastions, and fewer humans. At first, humans just lost the ability to fight them head on, and then they gradually became street rats, hiding from here and there, until they were found by the Bastions one by one, and finally all killed. There will be no place for humans in the Magic City. If you are lucky and hide well, you can live a few more days, but now there are more than 20 days before the end of the 30-day blockade. Who can survive more than 20 days? It's not that they don't want to answer, but they can't answer. This is a helpless situation. The military can only choose to do their best and leave it to fate. Gather the last troops to fight against the Bastions, delay time and consume their troops. The rest can only rely on the survivors themselves. If the East District goes like this, the situation in other urban areas is probably not much better. Lin Qun took a deep breath, looked at Kaozin, and said, "This is the result of the meeting. I think you came to me specially, because you probably have something else to say." He looked at Kaozin and others, and felt that the two people did not come here to talk about the tragic current situation, and he felt that the military would not be so decadent. They still had something to say. "Yes," Kaozin said, "in difficult times, choices must be made. In addition to this plan, the army headquarters also has an ARC plan. There are 3 hidden military air raid shelters around the Magic City, which can accommodate about 7,000 people together. In theory, they can avoid the search of the Bastions and last for 30 days. Of course, even now, there are millions of people in the Magic City, and it is impossible for everyone to enter it. Only after analysis and judgment, high potential survivors, experts, and talents, and some special personnel can enter and become one of the 7,000 people. In the ARC plan, only 7,000 people will be saved out of the remaining 1 million people in the Magic City. Lin Qun took a breath when he heard this. This plan sounds cruel, but it is the best choice in this situation. Only those who are valuable to human civilization can obtain the right to survive. This may be the real plan of the military. The military's ground forces and the evacuated survivors will be abandoned. Only the ARC plan is the real spark. The chaos and panic that will inevitably be caused by the military's desperate battle and the escape of the evacuated survivors are the best cover for the people preserved by the ARC plan. At this time, everyone reacted. Li Xing asked, "Then what do you mean by telling us this, Squad Leader KO? Are we qualified to enter?" Of course, Commander Fu values Mr. Lin's potential very much. Whether Mr. Lin is willing to join the military or not, Mr. Lin is a treasure of human civilization and should be given priority protection. Commander Fu has secured a quota for Mr. Lin. Logically speaking, this time I should take you to evacuate first before the big evacuation begins. It's just. KO Xin paused here and looked at Xiao Yi on the side. Xiao Yi's face condensed and he said, "There is something very important. I hope I can ask you to help." Chapter 83. I won't wait until the last moment to shoot. KO Xin's words contained too much information and had too much impact. 10 minutes ago, they were still waiting and watching, but now, they have a series of plans in place. Even the final escape plan that was completely abandoned. Hide in the air raid shelter. There are 20 million people in the Magic City, and only 7,000 survive. Lin Qun didn't rush to ask, and didn't even say anything. He just nodded slightly, and motioned for platoon leader Xiao to continue. He understood that such a quota could not be given to him for free, so he had to listen to what platoon leader Xiao's request was. However, for Lin Qun, the ARC plan can only be the final option. He can't choose to hide in it now. After all, the humans in the Magic City have not collapsed to the last moment, and now he can still hunt the Bastions outside. The ARC plan can be his last retreat. Xiao Yi said, "Just now, Squad Leader KO said that there are resistance forces in the emerging survivor base. Our people are also there. They are protecting a group of scientific research experts from the emerging survivor base. They are developing a biological weapon against the organisms of the Bastions. Don't be surprised. They are not of our kind. We don't need to be humane. They are probably also developing similar things. This is a targeted weapon that cannot be exchanged in the contribution point mall. Now, they are temporarily hiding in the community near the ruins of the emerging survivor base, but this is not a long-term solution. They must return to the 6th prison survivor base and transfer those scientific research experts and valuable research results to the secret air raid shelter of the ARC project. You want me to participate in the rescue of them?" Lin Qun understood what Xiao Yi's request was. Yes, the Bastions have covered the entire area of the emerging square survivor base. Once they start to evacuate, they will inevitably be hunted down by the Bastions. We need to greet, reinforce, and pick them up halfway. Xiao Yi said, "This is a very dangerous mission. We may even be hunted down by high-level Bastion telekinetic masters or even giant sailing ships. However, this group of experts and information is too important, and our current manpower is very limited. We cannot put all of them on. Commander Fu and Captain Chu still mean elite team, elite rescue, so." KO Xin also took over the conversation and said, "According to the plan, they will start to evacuate in an hour, and our reinforcement team must set off at the latest in 20 minutes. Mr. Lin, whether you refuse or join, we respect your choice." Lin Qun glanced at them and said irrelevantly, "As for the quota for the ARC plan, I can choose when to go, right? Yes, before the last moment arrives. The ARC plan is not the final plan. If possible, we certainly hope to defend the Magic City and protect as many survivors as possible. At the same time, we can also retain our troops, but the air raid shelters involved in the ARC plan have begun to accommodate qualified survivors. After all, if we really need to shift the priority sequence, when it is time to start, it will be too late." Kaozin said, I understand. Before we get to that point, with your strength, you must hope to move around outside and get more contribution points. If you are eventually evacuated, we will tell you how to use the quota. When the situation is not right, you can go by yourself. He glanced at the people behind Lin Qun again and emphasized, you can go by yourself, Mr. Lin. Don't get me wrong, this is not an exchange of interests. Whether you help us with this evacuation operation or not, you will get a quota. We are unable to train a strong man like you. This quota is the only thing we can do. Lin Qun glanced at them, then turned his head to look at Li Ji and others behind him, was silent for a moment, and said, I'll go. Xiao Yi and Kaozin were a little surprised. They didn't expect Lin Qun to decide so quickly. Lin Qun just smiled at this. When I played the chicken game in the past, I always liked to hide until the end, and then shoot, when it was a one-on-one duel in the destiny circle. But in this way, I was usually no match for others, because they killed all the way here, and their shooting skills were much better than mine. When someone is scapegoated, people can always hide, but when everyone else is dead, even the best hider will have nowhere to hide, and when that moment comes, there will be a head-on confrontation in the destiny circle, and there will not even be room to maneuver. So, this time, I won't wait until the last moment to shoot. They are an important asset of our human race, so I will do my best to assist you. How can the eggs under the overturned nest remain intact? They want to kill all the humans in the magic city, so I naturally have to draw my sword and fight back. If I wait until you are all dead before taking action, that is not hiding but stupidity. This was Lin Qun's answer. Behind him, Li Ji also stepped forward and said, Brother Lin, I will go with you, so we can take care of each other. Besides, when we play together, I'm the one who is willing to shoot. Lin Qun squinted at him and complained, yes, so even though we are in a team every time, I play like a single player. Qian Yingyi behind Li Ji did not speak or move. Li Xing gritted his teeth and said, Boss, I will come too. I can help you with my ability. Xiao Wen narrowed her eyes and took a step forward silently. Lin Qun shook his head. Li Ji, come with me, you will stay. Li Xing and Xiao Wen's abilities are indeed very useful as assistants, but because their abilities are more auxiliary and their growth is slow, it is difficult for them to protect themselves on the real battlefield. If they follow them, they will die. Li Ji's combat power has grown greatly recently, and his abilities are also very useful, which can play a role on the battlefield. Xiao Yi looked at this scene, was silent for a moment, and said, Mr. Lin, Mr. Li, please. Time is tight, and they are willing to say so much to Lin Qun here, which is a manifestation of great importance. The two of them walked out first. In the room, Lin Qun pulled Li Ji and said, if anything happens, run away quickly. I won't die. You are not as strong as me. You need to be smarter. Li Ji was stunned for a moment and said, brother, it's okay. You and I. If you still want to see your parents, don't be impulsive. Lin Qun interrupted him. Li Ji was silent. Lin Qun just smiled at him and walked forward. Li Ji followed him closely. Xiao Yi's team was reorganizing, and the team was almost expanded to the size of a company. Half of them were still military soldiers and half were survivors. Lin Qun also saw Liuyi and Ni Wensheng here. Ni Wensheng was invited by Liuyi. Standing in the crowd, he greeted Lin Qun excitedly. In addition, there were some survivors, masters among the top 100 survivors in the East District. At the same time, they also had armored forces, and it was said that there were Air Force reinforcement. It can be seen that the military attached great importance to this group of evacuees and the biological and chemical weapons research materials in their hands. Lin Qun and other top masters were arranged to board the same armored personnel carrier. Xiao Yi commanded the military forces, while Liuyi coordinated the survivors 27 minutes before the evacuation. The reinforcement team of the 6th prison of Magic City officially set off. Military vehicles and armored vehicles roared out of the survivor base. In front of them, 3 unmanned reconnaissance aircraft flew at high speed, and behind them, 10 minutes after departure, 2 armed helicopters would take off to cooperate with them in the battle. Chapter 84. We only have 7 minutes. The scrapped vehicles jamming the road were being forcefully knocked away. A human armed convoy was traveling at high speed on the street. The streets of the East District were more desolate than ever before. Both humans and Bakatan were concentrating their forces and shrinking their forces, which directly ended the chaotic scene of wars everywhere in the East District. This also bought precious time for Lin Qun and his reinforcement team to advance at high speed. They had almost no obstacles. It's just that the magic city itself is too big, and even if it is unobstructed, it will still take some time. The convoy was driving at high speed under the gloomy sky. The reconnaissance drones that set off first and the armed helicopters that set off later were nowhere to be seen. On the entire street, there seemed to be no other living things except them. Under the night sky of more than 2 o'clock in the morning, the scene seemed a little scary. But everyone in the car knew what mission they were going to take on this time. In the convoy, the armored vehicles were silent. Only the news from the front kept coming. The target of the mission in the direction of Xinxing Square has started to retreat 3 minutes ago. The target of the mission has started to engage in a firefight with the Bakatans. They changed their retreat route 2 minutes ago, and we are adjusting the route synchronously. Please note that we will encounter a retreating team in 7 minutes. Behind them is at least one formation of Bakatans, suspected to be a high-level telekinetic master. Please be prepared for a firefight. Information came one after another in the headset. After the last reminder arrived, the obvious sound of gunfire could indeed be heard from the front. Their convoy was braking urgently, and a large number of infantrymen got off the vehicles and pressed forward at high speed. The armored forces behind them were pulling out in a line. Lin Qun followed closely behind the infantry. Their survivor team and the military team acted separately and outflanked from 2 directions. The voice of the person in charge, Liui, rang in the headsets of every survivor soldier. There will be an exchange of fire. There will be an exchange of fire. Our mission is to provide fire cover, fire freely, and cover the expert evacuation team to pass through the dangerous area and board the car. Be careful, the Bakatans don't know that we are protecting the research team. Don't expose the target. All teams, take your positions. At this moment, their position is in the middle of the emerging survivor base and the 6th prison survivor base, nearly 10 kilometers away from both survivor bases. This is the best evacuation position at present. Each survivor was also issued a rifle, and now all arrived at the designated location to hide. The street where they hid was in a mess, full of traces of doomsday, and in the distance, explosions and roars were approaching rapidly. The first thing that came into view was an armored vehicle with smoke and flames, which seemed to have been shot through by a missile, followed closely by 3 shabby commercial vehicles, which were being bombarded by a group of Bakatan airships. Fire! Lin Qun and his survivors, and the soldiers and infantry on the other side of the street, opened fire instantly. At the same time, the armored forces behind them also opened fire crazily. A series of terrifying fire lines whizzed over the heads of Lin Qun and his men, landing on the far side of the street that Lin Qun and his men could not see. Then, the counterattack from the Bakatans also flew quickly. Heavy weapons exchanged fire in the air, and in the near distance, the bullets were already connected. 2 of the 6 Bakatan airships chasing the evacuation team were shot down in an instant. And at the moment when the reinforcement team opened fire, a stunning figure suddenly emerged from the smoking and burning armored vehicle in the evacuation team. Lin Qun didn't see it clearly. The figure was already as graceful as a startled swan, shooting out from the armored vehicle she was in and hitting an airship behind at high speed. She was dressed in blue, and her leap was like a faint blue light, elegant but sharp. A short flash of light, a loud bang, and the airship exploded directly. But her figure retreated at high speed and landed steadily on the armored vehicle. That's Xiaoqing. Ni Wensheng recognized her at a glance. It seemed that many people on the battlefield knew her, and they all showed an excited expression. But at this moment, a deafening roar came from far away. There were 3 Bakatan V-shaped fighters bombing at ultra-low altitude, and instantly half of the street was covered in a sky-high flame. Many people were blown to death before they could react to what happened. A missile fell on the top of Lin Qun and his head. Lin Qun was quick-witted and took out his shield to resist it directly. The flames burst, and Lin Qun was dizzy. Li Ji on the side helped him up, and a volley of bullets flew past his scalp in the distance. A large number of Bakatan armored forces appeared, and the buildings on both sides of the street were blown down. They were like a torrent of steel rushing forward. In addition, there were a large number of Bakatan armed personnel following closely behind. Their equipment was uneven. Some were running wildly on the ground, while others were driving messy modified airships, holding their weapons high and howling excitedly. Their number and firepower were several times that of human troops. In the headset, there was LIUI's roar, cover, cover, rush up, protect the expert team and scientific research data. Turning his head, he saw him, and Ni Wensheng and others rushing out at high speed, rushing towards the flaming armored vehicle that flipped over in front. Follow me. Lin Qun gritted his teeth and followed closely. At the same time, he directly installed the Iron Blood Warrior shoulder gun on himself. That thing looked very advanced. It was not only a turret, but also a shoulder armor shape, connected to a monocular lens, which could see various parameters and fire through the neural connection. Of course, its more effective ability is automatic firing. Lin Qun took the lead and rushed out from behind with Li Ji, and then a Bakatan airship rushed towards them. As a result, Lin Qun did not even look back. His shoulder gun automatically turned 35 degrees, and 3 plasma shells were fired, which directly blew up the Bakatan airship in the air, turning it into a fireball and exploding in front of Lin Qun. Lin Qun raised his shield. The flames spread along the red line of the vibranium shield, and sparks flew. Lin Qun raised his head from behind. In front of him, the roaring Bakatans who came to kill him were shot in the head one after another. His eyes swept around, and all the Bakatans on a fan fell down. The survivors and soldiers who rushed out from this direction, who did not know Lin Qun, were all stunned. After following Lin Qun for a few seconds, they did not open fire, and a Bakatan in front was killed by Lin Qun. At this moment, the infantry battlefield nearby was in chaos, and Liui and his men were fighting hand to hand. The road ahead of them was hit by heavy firepower snipers. A giant Bakatan tank roared and opened fire, beating Liui and his men so hard that they couldn't raise their heads. With one shot, half of the building collapsed with a wail, and the reminder from the general commander was ringing in everyone's earphones. Please pay attention to all units. Our reconnaissance aircraft have been completely destroyed. A Bakatan sailing ship is moving in your direction. You only have 7 minutes to rescue the expert team and evacuate within 7 minutes, otherwise the mission will fail. You do not have the firepower to fight against this Bakatan sailing ship, and we cannot confirm whether there are Bakayan or other high-level Bakatan telekinetic masters in this sailing ship. Repeat, please. Lin Qun raised his head, his eyes passing through the smoke and flames, and saw at the end of his vision, a sailing ship was getting bigger and bigger in his field of vision. That means, the distance between it and them is rapidly closing. Their reinforcements are coming. It's on the shelves now. Please support. Thank every book friend who supports it, and hope that you can continue to support the authentic version. Thank you again. Chapter 85, A Forest of Humanoid Turrets. The meat grinder of the battlefield is turning. The second minute after the sailing ship began to move, Liui's troops were still suppressed behind the bunker. They charged twice and paid a heavy price. Ni Wensheng was almost killed. Xiao Yi led his men to charge again from another direction, but was beaten back by the second Bakatan heavy tank. On the street, the overturned human armored vehicle shook slightly. The experts were inside, and they dared not make a sound or move. At this moment, a figure suddenly jumped out from one side. The machine gun of the Bakatan heavy tank opened fire instantly, and dense bullets were madly sweeping on the ground, but the figure only raised a shield high and resisted the dense machine gun fire, and his speed did not stop at all, charging forward at high speed. The tank's turret moved slowly, and the machine gun fired briefly. At that moment, the figure jumped up from the ground, and a shoulder gun on his shoulder fired automatically, and the Bakatans along the way fell to the ground one after another. He rushed to the vicinity of the heavy tank with unstoppable force, and then jumped up and jumped directly onto the tank. Then, a scene that made the Bakatans shudder appeared. After the man jumped up, he stretched out his hands and opened the lid of the locked Bakatan tank. At that moment, almost everyone had the same thought. What kind of monster is that? That man was naturally Lin Qun. His combo was smooth and the top hatch of the tank was locked, but he burst out Mario power, which could reach 27. The vibranium shield was smashed to deform it, and then it was torn open directly. Although the Bakatans inside were terrified, they were not Bakatan armed personnel, but real soldiers. There were already combat personnel in the tank holding guns waiting for Lin Qun, but unfortunately, their guns were not as fast as Lin Qun's eyes. The moment the top hatch was opened, it fell down with a bang. Lin Qun threw a fire talisman directly inside. Close the hatch. With a loud bang, the hatch was blown off. Lin Qun became the focus of the battlefield. A group of Bakatins fired at him crazily. Several airships even pointed their guns at him. Unfortunately, their firepower was amazing, and Lin Qun's firepower was also amazing. The airship is coming. Fireball directly hit your face. One fireball will blow you up. Shooting at me? The shoulder gun automatically searches for the enemy, and the eyes are locked. On one side, Li Ji was hiding under the scrap tank, and using the hand cannon to discharge electricity to assist. Li Ji's face was full of excitement, and he was so happy to kill. In addition, Lin Qun had a shield in his hand, and with the super high mobility of Mario's jump, he was like a god of war, and more like a mobile humanoid turret, firing crazily on the battlefield, killing as many Bakatins as came up around him. Of course, Lin Qun was also taking drugs crazily during this process. There was no time to drink the blue bottle, so he drank all the remaining concentration pills directly. His energy soared, and whoever he stared at would die. If the shoulder cannon bullets are used up, you can also buy energy devices from the contribution point mall. 2 contribution points can charge 6 bullets. 1 bullet can at least kill 1 Bakatin. Xiao Yi, Liui and others quickly rushed up to rescue the expert team. Xiao Yi was so excited that he understood that asking Lin Qun to come was the right choice. Many soldiers and survivors who didn't know Lin Qun were stunned. Who is he? There is such a person in our survivor base. So fierce. On the other side, the graceful Xia King also rushed out at high speed. She had an extremely sharp weapon in her hand that could help her kill through the top cover and instantly paralyze a tank. Ni Wensheng's eyes were spitting fire, and he was envious and yearning. In his opinion, Lin Qun and Xia King were simply too fierce. They were people he admired and dreamed of becoming. Retreat. Retreat quickly. At this time, Xiao Yi had brought the experts out of the armored vehicle and formed a meat team with Liui and other soldiers, and quickly evacuated backwards, preparing to join the armored forces behind them and evacuate immediately. However, at this moment, the Bakatins on the battlefield suddenly retreated rapidly. Li Ji ran out from behind the tank bunker with a roar and threw Lin Qun to the ground. Be careful. Lin Qun only saw a meteor flying over his head. It was a dense missile. The 2 surrounding blocks were instantly shrouded in a rain of death. Now more than 5 minutes have passed, and the Bakatin sailing ship has approached infinitely. The missile array on it opened fire, covering and bombing 2 blocks, covering all the human troops and even those who they did not have time to evacuate. Moreover, Lin Qun and Xia King, the 2 killers who shone brightly on the battlefield, became their top priority targets. A row of missiles flew all the way. They did not know what military human experts were, but they could see these 2 powerful humans on the ground. Lin Qun saw Li Ji's face covered in blood, and his eyes turned red. Are you stupid? I won't die that easily. Do you have higher attributes than me? Li Ji's ears were bleeding, and he seemed to not hear Lin Qun's words at all. He said stupidly, brother, are you okay? How are you? But at this time, there was no time to say anything. A row of missiles had already flown over. Lin Qun rolled on the ground and ran with Li Ji on his back. Mario's strength bonus was still in effect. He had 27 points of strength. He carried a living person, as if walking on flat ground. With his jumping ability, he was as fast as flying. Run forward. Many people were blown to death, and the rest fled everywhere in the sea of fire and ruins. In front, Xiao Yi and Liui were retreating. In that direction, 2 armed helicopters of the military rose up and fired missiles at the Bakatin sailing ship. On the battlefield, fire rained and broken limbs were everywhere. Lin Qun felt that he was running in blood and fire, and the missiles behind him chased his butt and shot fiercely. This is not a solution. He will be blown to death. Lin Qun's eyes flashed with a crazy cruelty. He carried Li Ji in one hand, and in the other hand, a card had slipped out. It was giant. In the headset, Xiao Yi's voice was anxious. Go. Retreat quickly, Mr. Lin. Retreat quickly. We have captured the target person. His voice suddenly paused, because at this moment, he suddenly found that he could not move. An invisible force was rapidly sweeping across the entire battlefield. The shadow of the Bastion sailing ship was covering the earth. This sailing ship was 200 meters long. From a distance, it looked like a sailing ship, but in fact, it was made of steel and iron, with many guns, and floating more than 300 meters in the air. The so-called sail was just a huge flag of civilization raised by the Bastion people. At this moment, a figure was slowly flying out from its bow, with an indifferent expression, opening his arms, and embracing the world like a god. The voice of the general commander from the rear sounded in everyone's channel. Identity confirmed. It is the 15th ranked telekineticist in the East. Mission objectives updated. Experts can be abandoned if necessary. Research materials must be brought back. Chapter 86. Gigantic. Gigantic. At the moment, when Lin appeared on the battlefield in East District 15, a shadow as graceful as a startled swan suddenly rose up on the side of the street that was almost in ruins and was boiling with flames. In the world controlled by telekinesis, she seemed to be unaffected. She turned into a graceful arc, extremely fast, rising from the ground at high speed, and rushed straight to Lin, the Bastion sailing ship over 300 meters high. That was King. She was like a faint blue lightning, her blue clothes dancing wildly in the strong wind, straight into the clouds, pointing her sword at the top telekinetic master of Bastion. Being able to rank in the top 3 for a long time, she is definitely not a peer. This King's talent is also extremely amazing. Judging from her contribution points, her level is not high. With such power, it should be that her talent is very powerful, at least above B level. The Bastion sailing ship instantly began to pull up in altitude, and the thrusters spewed out flames. At the same time, the turrets on it quickly turned and poured artillery fire on her crazily. It can be imagined that the Bastions in the bridge were startled by her, but the Bastion sailing ship still reacted quickly and accurately, trying to knock King down from the sky. No matter how powerful it is still a flesh and blood body. How can it compete with a steel ship? The Bastion telekinetic master seemed a little surprised. He didn't expect that there were humans who could resist it. His telekinesis instantly converged, and his control over the entire battlefield instantly weakened. He turned to attack King. The Bastions didn't know the real target protected by the military. In their view, this group of humans was just here to support them. Therefore, it would be better to kill King first than to chase Zhao and others. Because of the potential shown by King's combat power at this moment, Lin was slightly shocked. If this female human is not killed, many Bastions will die in her hands in the future. While she hasn't grown up yet, keep her here forever. Therefore, its priority for killing instantly became King. And this was actually King's purpose. She soared into the sky, not caring about those things anymore, just to buy time and opportunity for Zhao and others to retreat to protect the experts and research materials. King is so powerful. She deserves to be the second in the East District. Seize the opportunity. Retreat quickly. Retreat quickly. Zhao immediately reacted and led his men to continue retreating. Their mission was to retreat immediately without any delay. Overhead, 2 armed helicopters fired at the same frequency, helping King to soar into the sky. At this time, Zhao suddenly heard that Lin Qun had connected to his channel and said quickly, "I want to borrow an armed helicopter." Zhao was startled. "What are you going to do? Armed helicopters are not safe. They are sitting ducks in the air." He thought Lin Qun was scared and wanted to rely on armed helicopters to escape. But Lin Qun's answer surprised him. "I want to shoot down that Bastion sailing ship." In the corner of the battlefield, Lin Qun and Li Ji were hiding behind a battlefield wall, panting heavily. King bought him time and space so that he would not be the target of the Bastion people's bombardment for a short time. Otherwise, if they were chased and bombarded all the time, no one would have time to do anything, and they couldn't release the giant in their hands. He was also looking up at this scene. His eyes were bloodshot. He knew that King could not succeed. 300 meters seemed to be her limit. Before 300 meters, her charge had already shown a decline. When she just soared into the sky, she even left the Bastion shells behind her all the way and changed direction gracefully in the air, which meant that she had real flying ability. But as she broke through 200 meters, her speed slowed down significantly, and her movements were obviously sluggish. It was obvious that she would never reach the East District 15. Moreover, the bastion sailing ship has been increasing in altitude. Lin Qun held the giant card tightly in his hand and held Li Ji with his other hand, saying, "The armed helicopter will come to pick me up in a while. After I go up, you run. Run as hard as you can. Run to Xiao Yi's side. I have agreed with him. He will definitely take you back to the survivor base. Do you hear me? The duration of the giantization is only 10 minutes. He can't use it now. He must start it when he can take action." Li Ji was blown up with blood all over his head and face. His expression was dazed, and his eardrums were perforated. He couldn't hear what Lin Qun said clearly, but he seemed to understand what Lin Qun meant, so he just grabbed Lin Qun's hand with his bloody hand and muttered over and over again, "Brother, no, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You have to go home with me. You have to go with me to find my parents. I want to take you to my house, to eat iron pot stew and barbecue. Wait for me. I will go to the survivor base to find you." Lin Qun pulled his hand away with difficulty, and at that moment, behind them, all the sounds suddenly disappeared. Lin Qun turned his head. Xiaoqing had reached her limit under the sailing ship. At an altitude of about 350 meters, the bastion ship stopped firing, but the East District 15G lowered the bow and grilly pointed a finger at her. Xiaoqing's pupils dilated in an instant. The next second, blood burst out from every blood vessel, every skin, and every organ in her body. That ray of blood dyed everyone's vision red. The blue figure instantly turned bloody and fell from the air dejectedly, falling to the ground in endless ruins. At that moment, no one fired again. Whether it was the bastion people on the battlefield, or Xiao Yi and others who were desperately retreating, they were all stunned. The moment Xiaoqing rose like lightning, she amazed the entire battlefield, like the hope of mankind. But she was killed in an instant. Is this the real master among the bastion people? But she bought everyone the most critical time, and even the opportunity to fight back. The helicopter has arrived in front of Lin Qun. At the same time, Xiao Yi and his team retreated to the armored vehicle position. The first armored vehicle with experts had already started. The second one followed closely with research materials. But Xiao Yi did not leave. He pressed down a military vehicle and waited for Li Ji to come. That was the agreement between him and Lin Qun. After hearing Lin Qun's idea, I almost thought he was crazy. Platoon leader Xiao, are you crazy? Agree with his plan? Xiaoqing is dead, and he is going to challenge the other sailing ship alone. Isn't this courting death? If Xiao Yi still had a little fantasy and hope when he first heard Lin Qun's idea, but now, watching Xiaoqing fall from the sky like a kite, he no longer had that fantasy in his heart. He knew that Lin Qun would definitely die, but he had no choice. I can't persuade him, and he's right. If no one goes, none of us can leave. Xiao Yi gritted his teeth. Mr. Lin is a high potential survivor that we should protect, but this information is more important. If the research and development is successful, we can kill them in large numbers like killing pests. The magic city may be saved. At the same time, Lin Qun had boarded the first drone. He pushed Li Ji out and roared in the roaring wind of the rotors. Go Li Ji, you can't help me. It's useless to follow me. It's useless to follow us. Your parents are still waiting for you at home. Will you listen to me? Exclamation mark. Go back and wait for me. Go back to the survivor base. Li Ji stumbled forward, not knowing whether he heard it or not, and how much he heard. His face was full of tears and blood. He knew that his parents might have died a long time ago. In his heart, his brother Lin was his last relative. He could only run forward, and run forward desperately. But he knew that what Lin Qun said was right. Get up and keep running if you fall. Don't dare to look back. And behind him, the Wazee was circling and rising. Lin Qun looked at the soldiers in the helicopter. Did platoon leader Xiao tell you what we are going to do? You may all die, and just to send me off. The pilot in the cabin rushed towards the distance in silence. The soldier in the cabin just smiled and shook his head. You are not a soldier. You are not afraid. So what should we be afraid of? Moreover, covering the retreat is our duty. Whether you can succeed or not, we will give you a ride. Two helicopters, alternately covering each other, rushed towards the bastion sailing ship. Li Nu didn't seem to care about the two helicopters, because this was obviously a suicidal attack to buy time, so his eyes instantly locked on the retreating humans in the distance. He narrowed his eyes and flew forward. Despite this, Lin Qun and his men also encountered huge resistance. The bastion sailing ship was intensively fired, and the first helicopter in the front directly helped the one where Lin Qun was to withstand tons of output, and exploded in midair into a huge fireball. When it rose to 300 meters, Lin Qun's plane was also hit, and smoke billowed, and 1/3 of the fuselage was not hit. The pilot made a final cry, "Mr. Lin, we can only rely on inertia to send you another way." Lin Qun was already standing on the edge of the violently shaking helicopter. The hatch had disappeared. The huge thing in his hand was glowing. His body began to swell. Strangely, the brilliance also enveloped his clothes, and his clothes were expanding in the same proportion. The bastion sailing ship has risen to a height of more than 600 meters, and the WASI can send him to nearly 400 meters or 500 meters. Enough. He jumped at the last moment. Behind him, the WASI soldiers were looking at him, watching his body swell and become huge little by little, with shock in their eyes. But the shock soon turned into calm. All they could give Lin Qun was a blessing. "Brother, go ahead and kill them. We can only send you here. We can't kill the bastions, so you'll have to take care of them." Lin Qun's figure had already jumped out. Behind him, the helicopter was hit by a missile and exploded. The impact pushed Lin Qun's body upward. His body was growing madly. Growing hurry. The size is increasing by 1.5 times. Strength and physique doubled, all doubled. Strength 36 points, with Mario skills, up to 54. Physical fitness doubled, 64. Headshot girl skill, all creatures below 128 can be killed in one glance. Chapter 87, who kills whom instantly? In the distance, the last military vehicle had already started and had driven a distance, but it was stuck in the mud under the power of Li Nu and moved forward with difficulty. They were at the edge of Li Nu's range of influence. The opponent could not crush them in one breath, but they would be affected. But this meant that they were sitting ducks. Just one missile would. However, the expected attack did not come, and the people in the car instinctively turned around and saw a scene that they would never forget. On the explosive and falling helicopter, Lin Qun's figure was becoming very huge. His height directly rushed to nearly 9 meters, and his body size was enlarged to 5 times the same proportion. At this moment, he turned into a real giant. With Mario's jump, he could jump more than 50 meters with a jump distance of 6 times his height. But at the same time, he became a sitting duck in the air. The dense machine guns turned towards him. The gale was howling, and there was a dazzling flash in front of Lin Qun's eyes. There was no way to avoid the whistling machine gun bullets. He could only let those terrifying large caliber projectiles fall on his body, and blood splattered. If he was in the state before he became giant, he might have been beaten to pieces at this time, but now, his physical fitness was as high as 64 points, and he could still withstand it. He used the vibranium shield, which now seemed a little small, to protect his head and his arms to protect his heart. At the moment, when the bastion missiles whistled, he turned in mid-air and jumped twice cleanly. The missiles flew over his feet. All this happened in less than 2 seconds. The dense attacks of the bastion sailing ship passed by like rain. Lin Qun had already soared into the sky like a flash of lightning, crossing the last distance of more than 100 meters, and crashed into the giant ship in the horrified eyes of many bastion people in the bridge of the bastion sailing ship. At the same time, Li Nu retracted his gaze at this moment. It looked at the giant human who crashed into it like a blood gourd, and a hint of disdain appeared in its eyes. This is looking for death. The space around Lin Qun was instantly stagnant. 2 seconds was enough for Li Nu to turn his sight back and start to use his telekinesis. This reaction was fast enough. It didn't expect that there was such a human hidden in the 2 human helicopters that were obviously launching suicide attacks. But in its opinion, this human is not to be feared at all. Stupid suicide attack, thinking that being big means being strong? It's pathetic and ridiculous. Its 4 eyes looked down indifferently through the complicated attacks and wanted to crush this human into a ball of flesh and blood in the next second. And in this second, Lin Qun also raised his head. Looking at it, The distance of 50 meters has been shortened. Lin Qun just drank the blue bottle in the helicopter for free, and his energy has been fully increased to 32 points. The conditions for the release of the headshot girl have been met. The six eyes stared at each other at that moment. Looking at the eyes of a human who had killed countless people, Ji Linu suddenly felt an indescribable feeling. In that half second, it felt uncomfortable, its head felt a little dizzy, and the blood in its body seemed to scream out loudly and uncontrollably. In the next quarter second, it realized what was going to happen, and the expression in its eyes became infinitely terrified. The confidence and pride, disdain, and contempt in the previous moment did not even have time to completely transform into shock at this moment. It could only desperately mobilize its telekinesis, trying to crush the opponent's body before the opponent's attack took effect completely. But it was too late. But at the end of this second, the Bastions and the sailing ship were stunned for a moment, watching everything happening in front of them in disbelief. Giulia's head exploded like a bursting watermelon. Its headless body fell from the bow and fell dejectedly to the ground under its feet. The telekinesis it aroused disappeared in an instant. Lin Qun's eyes were fierce, and his eyes were blood red. Who kills who in seconds? Anyone with a physical fitness below 128 points can be killed, and I can't kill you in seconds? You have successfully killed an alien civilization creature, and obtained +1 civilization contribution point and +5,000 experience points. 5,000 experience points. This East District ranks 15th, worth 5,000 experience points. And the next second, Lin Qun's body crashed into the sailing ship. In the distance, with the death of Ji Linu, the force that suppressed the speed of the car suddenly disappeared, and Zhao Yi and his car suddenly accelerated and rushed out quickly. And they all saw the scene just now, whether it was Zhao Yi or Ni Wensheng and Liui in the car that was closer to the front, all looked horrified. They also thought that Lin Qun's attack was a suicide attack, which at most helped him buy time, but who would have thought that Lin Qun killed the arrogant 15th second? You know, even Xia King was killed by it in seconds, and she was not its opponent at all. Such a strong man, looking at the entire East District, can't find a few people who can be its enemy. But now, it is dead headless body, falling from the sky. What kind of monster is this? Exclamation mark. Ni Wensheng's eyes were fanatical. I knew it. I knew it. He couldn't be looking for death. He is too strong. He is too strong. He grabbed the communication device and connected directly to Zhao Yi, saying, Platoon Leader Zhao, we can't give up on him. I apply to go back to reinforce Brother Lin. In the car, Zhao Yi also swallowed hard, but he had no choice. Lin Qun was several levels stronger than he expected, even stronger than Xia King, and instantly killed the invincible and powerful Bastion telekineticist. His thoughts began to waver. Maybe I can really go back. Because in the distance, Lin Qun, who had grown to a huge size at this time, had climbed onto the giant sailing ship and landed on the deck of the giant ship. Although it was unclear what he was doing, it was visible that there were pieces of fire rising from the deck of the giant sailing ship, and the entire sailing ship was shaking. Zhao Yi looked down at Li Ji, who was already unconscious beside him, gritted his teeth, and was about to make a decision. You are not going back to reinforce. I will go. However, at this moment, a message from the headquarters of the survivor base came quickly. Hearing this news, Zhao Yi's expression suddenly turned pale. The remnants of the ruins of the survivor base in Xingxing Square sent back news that Bastion has just set off and is heading in your direction. 2 other sailing ships have begun to turn. Retreat immediately. Retreat immediately. Zhao Yi's hand holding the communicator slowly dropped. He knew that it was useless for them to go back. If they could leave, Lin Qun could leave by himself. If they couldn't leave, they would just be sending their heads back. He could only desperately try to call Lin Qun and try to tell him that reinforcement from the Bastions were coming. But unfortunately, in the gigantic state, Lin Qun's ears also became bigger, and coupled with the violent movements, the earphones had long slipped away. He had no way of getting this news. As the convoy was going further and further away, Zhao Yi sat on the ground, and Ni Wensheng smashed the communicator on the ground. He understood the helplessness of Zhao Yi's choice, but he could not hide the infinite anger in his heart. He turned around in the armored vehicle furiously. Damn Bastions! Damn Bastions! Bastards! Bastards! but near the battlefield, under the tilted and smoking sailing ship, in the corner of the ruins, there was a person who was looking up at the scene above his head with bright eyes. Chapter 88. He shot down a bastion battleship. Lin Qun's headset was lost long ago, and the military couldn't contact him at all. He didn't know that bastion was rushing here, let alone that 2 sailing ships were moving towards this side. At this time, his attention was all on the battlefield nearby, and he didn't even have time to look over there. The battle situation was too tense. In fact, even if he knew, it would be useless. He boarded the bastion sailing ship, which was hundreds of meters high in the air. He was in a dilemma. There was only one choice before him: sink the warship. Otherwise, even if he had Mario's jumping ability and could violate the laws of physics and ignore the impact when landing, it might not be a big deal if he jumped from such a high place with his current size, but he would be a living target and would be shot by the bastions. In fact, when he boarded the deck of the sailing ship, Lin Qun was already a blood-gourd. Although he avoided the key missiles, he was hit by machine guns in a large area and was hit by several naval guns. There were many bullet holes on his huge body and bleeding everywhere. If it weren't for his amazing physique and big body, he would have died long ago. Fortunately, there were no bastion gun turrets on the deck. The shoulder guns of the sailing ship were on the side and below. There was a huge platform above, where some attack ships were parked. This was similar to the aerospace carrier that Lin Qun had seen before in Marvel movies. It was just that it was more solid than the aerospace carrier, and the upper armor was also very complete. After Li Nu was killed, Lin Qun successfully boarded the deck. The bastions wanted to kill him, so they could only send members of the Marine Corps in the battleship to encircle Lin Qun. This sailing ship actually had a small number of personnel, less than 100 people. This was because when sailing in the air, the larger the size, the greater the energy consumption, and the more difficult it was to achieve technology. Although the bastion spaceship looked large, there were not many people. In the final analysis, they were not much better than the technology possessed by humans. Such an aerospace spaceship, humans would be able to build it in no time if they worked harder. Lin Qun hid behind an attack ship. His body was a bit big now, so he could only hide behind the attack ship to barely block it. The bastions surrounded him from several directions and fired at him intensively, all hitting the hull of the attack ship. Lin Qun gasped for breath. His physical strength was declining. He took 2 bottles of energy recovery potions in a row, observed quietly, locked onto several bastion warriors, and directly launched an indescribable call. The bastions who rushed up were horrified to find that their companions had suddenly changed their bodies without any signs, howling and turning into monsters. Bastions are different from humans. They are larger and have multiple legs. After mutation, they are also a new form of deep divers, uglier and more twisted, but more powerful and powerful. It seems like a scene from a horror movie here. The bastions howled wildly and fired desperately, but watched their companions around them turn into monsters one after another and attack them frantically. In the end, even they themselves became monsters. This was the first time that Lin Qun used this skill on a living creature, but it was surprisingly useful. He found that this skill also had a casting distance, about 70 to 80 meters. As long as the bastions were within this range, he could affect them. Moreover, consuming 2 points of dark energy could mutate a bastion. This was more than using it on a gel pen, but it was acceptable. After all, the size and attributes of a bastion were not comparable to a gel pen. For this kind of mutated bastion, Lin Qun could also gain 1 unit of civilization contribution points. Lin Qun only had 9 points of dark energy, which could only be used 4 times normally, but there were also dark energy recovery potions in the contribution point mall. 1 contribution point was a bottle of dark energy recovery potion with golden liquid, which could restore 2 points of dark energy. Therefore, although Lin Qun's dark energy limit was limited, he could hide behind the attack ship and take drugs like crazy. Come and mutate a bastion. This skill does not require much movement to activate, and it only consumes dark energy, which is just right for Lin Qun now. As a killer, he can break through the encirclement of these bastions. In this way, the contribution points can only be said to be equal. He mutated a group of bastions, but earned almost no contribution points, but he got a group of thugs. The only bad thing is that the Bakatans killed by the Bakatan divers seem to have triggered some kind of bug. The Bakatans they killed will not calculate experience and contribution points for Lin Qun, because it seems that it is impossible to gain contribution points if the Bakatans kill themselves and civilized races kill each other. Just like Lin Qun, killing humans also does not have contribution points and experience. Maybe using a racially mutated diver to kill creatures of other civilizations can settle contribution points. But at this time, he can't care so much. In a moment, there were nearly 20 Bakatan versions of divers running around on the entire deck. Almost all the Bakatan marines who came up from the sailing ship were turned into his thugs by Lin Qun. The scene was like a night parade of hundreds of ghosts. Even the Bakatans in the bridge were terrified. How did he do it? He turned all our people into monsters. He's not human. He's definitely not human. What kind of ability is this? The Bakatans, who had been slaughtering humans and bringing fear to humans, felt infinite fear in a human at this moment. They looked at their bodies in horror, fearing that they would suddenly mutate in the next second and turn into those indescribable, twisted and ugly crazy monsters on the deck outside. On the deck, the situation had completely reversed. The Bakatans were slaughtered. The remaining few Bakatans stumbled towards an attack ship and wanted to start it, but they were doomed to fail because Lin Qun noticed them. He stood up from his hiding place and pushed the attack ship behind him to collide with this one head on, stumbling forward, and blood flowed all over the ground. But he succeeded. With the blessing of huge power, he directly pushed the attack aircraft behind him out like a hammer. With a loud bang, the two attack ships exploded, and flames and thick smoke billowed up. The deck was blown up. In the sky, a sharp whistle was heard. It was the V-shaped fighter planes of Bakatan that were shot down by the military, leaving only one. However, they just circled and did not open fire. Deeply horrified by the scene on the deck, they did not open fire because there was no target on the deck at this moment. Lin Qun and his army of deep divers had already rushed from the deck that had just been blown up to the interior of the sailing ship. His injuries were serious, and he staggered when he walked. He did not know how much blood he had lost, but the more this happened, the more he kept taking drugs, maximuming out his energy and dark energy, ensuring that he was in an extremely excited state, and rushed into the interior of the sailing ship. The terrifying deep divers opened the way, killing gods and buddhas. Deep divers can not only be thugs, but also meat shields. After the mutation, these Bakatan divers were twisted and crazy, bloodthirsty, and manic, but they only obeyed Lin Qun's orders. Under Lin Qun's command, they slaughtered their colleagues. The divers that appeared along the way were either killed by Lin Qun's stare, or turned into monsters with an indescribable call. Moreover, these Bakatan divers still had a little memory left, leading the way for Lin Qun. Let him kill all the way to the bridge. The door was smashed open by Lin Qun's punch. Under the giganticity, his strength was as high as 54. There was nothing inside the bridge that could stop him. He was like a god of war, and like a terrible god-favored person, sweeping the entire Bakatan warship. Most of the Bakatans in the bridge were non-combatants. When Lin Qun didn't kill them, they were already terrified. Only a few security personnel dared to resist, but they didn't fire a single shot, and screamed in front of other Bakatans, twisted and mutated, and turned into Bakatan divers one by one. The enemy is my manpower. Lin Qun threw out the last fire talisman. With a loud bang, the entire bridge was bathed in flames. At this moment, the entire Bakatan sailing ship began to fall. It was like a huge ship about to capsize, with flames all over and thick smoke billowing everywhere. It first tilted slowly, then accelerated and fell, crashing into the ground under its feet. Lin Qun sat on the ground of the bridge, surrounded by flames and high temperatures, but he was panting violently. The pain and blood loss were taking his life, but his full energy made his brain highly awake. Everything around was wailing, and the hull was disintegrating inch by inch. Turning his head outside the window, the ground was approaching infinitely. The fall of the giant ship was getting faster and faster. Lin Qun gritted his teeth and stood up, rushed to the window of the bridge, kicked it open with terrifying power, and then jumped out. The last order Lin Qun issued was to let the deep divers roar in, embrace his body, and turn it into the last defense. And near and far, humans and Bakatans all witnessed the scene. The Bakatan sailing ship fell from the sky with billowing smoke. Zhao Yi stood in the carriage and watched the scene. He really did it, with the smallest price and the smallest sacrifice. He really did what he said, may God bless him, and let him get out of here unscathed. He turned his head and looked at the unconscious Li Ji and whispered in his heart, I will fulfill my promises to you one by one. Whether you can come back or not, the people around you will have a place in the Ark plan. The 6th Prison Survivor Base Command Center, which received the real-time battlefield images. Fu Kai looked at this scene and stood up from his position, staring at the picture sent back. The voice of his adjutant on the side was still unbelievable. He shot down a Bakatan warship alone. At that moment, the entire command center was silent. The rising flames in the picture seemed to be the only non-freeze frame picture. Today's 3 updates and 1 chapter have been added. I would like to ask for your support. In addition, now that it is on the shelves, there is no need to update in the middle of the night. Starting tomorrow, the update time will be changed to noon every day, which will be more convenient for everyone to read. Thank you for your support. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Bakatan arrives. At a distance of 1,000 meters, the second echelon of reconnaissance drones sent by the military were hovering. The images it brought back to the command center were billowing smoke, debris, and flames covering the ground. When the sailing ship fell, its tail hit a building on one side, half of the fuselage was torn apart, and it plunged into the ground. Half of the unfortunate building collapsed, and smoke and dust flooded the surrounding streets. Infrared thermal imaging showed that there were still traces of life in the ruins and flames, and there were quite a few of them. I don't know if they were Bakatans or... But this drone didn't dare to linger any longer, because there was a shrill sound of breaking through the air in the distance. Bakatan had entered the drone's observation field of view. Bakatan will arrive in half a minute at most, and the 2 sailing ships will arrive in 1.5 minutes. Our action this time has attracted their attention. In the command center, the adjutant spoke slowly. Single-handedly, he killed 15 Bakatans in seconds, and sank a huge sailing ship. If I were a Bakatan, I would not be able to sit still. Fu Kai said, disperse 2 search and rescue teams. Mr. Lin, we want to see him alive or dead. Get ready to welcome platoon leader Zhao and his team back. Then, start the evacuation plan for the survivors base of the 6th prison in advance. In an instant, the entire command center was busy. At this time, the latest instructions had been transmitted to the intelligent computer of the drone. It pulled up at high speed, stopped and started the hidden function to monitor the situation below. The military did not want to give up Lin Qun, whose life and death was unknown. The rescue team will soon set off. It will be composed of emergency personnel and personnel with special hidden talents, and try to achieve covert operations under the eyes of the Bakatans. In this case, he is willing to pay 2 teams and a drone, which shows how much Fu Kai values Lin Qun. Such a strong man must be brought back alive as much as possible. We have lost 1 Kiza-chun, and we can't lose another Lin Qun. Fu Kai stared at the screen. This was the highest praise he gave to Lin Qun. Kiza-chun was the strongest man in the East District. In his heart, this Lin Qun could be on par with Kiza-chun. Although Fu Kai also agreed to let Lin Qun participate in this operation, he never thought of letting Lin Qun die there. However, the battlefield was changing rapidly after all, and there was no way for him to change many things. All he could do was to try his best to bring Lin Qun back. Bring back the fire of mankind. Fu Kai felt deeply helpless. Such a talent should be given resources and protection, so that he could grow up thoroughly, but they did not have this opportunity and conditions. All the cards in their hands must and can only be used. However, at the same time, Zhao Yi and his team's convoy had already rode a long distance and completely evacuated to a safe area. Zhao Yi sat in the shaking carriage, still looking back. In the carriage, it was quiet and silent. They completed the mission. In the survivor base, many people were surprised to find that the ranking of the East District human ranking had quietly changed. The second placed Liang was advancing rapidly and surpassed the first placed give me back my work to become the first. Moreover, the total number of contribution points exceeded that of give me back my work by nearly 100 points. This is not an ordinary gap. 100 contribution points, that's 100 Bakatons. People were talking about it. Who is this Liang? Oh my god, is he crazy about killing? Now that the situation outside is like this, how can he find a single Bakaton to kill? Did he rush to the Bakaton headquarters? In Lin Qun's cell, Li Xing and the others knew who the ID Liang corresponded to, and they were all very excited. The boss is the boss. He is getting more and more powerful. It's only been a few hours, and the total number of contribution points has increased by nearly 300, right? Killing Bakatons is like killing dogs. Li Xing looked excited. Qian Yingying, however, showed a worried look. This is not a game of mowing the grass. 300 Bakatons, that's a very large number. This was killed by Lin Qun alone. How many Bakatons did they have to encounter? I hope they can all return safely. Zhao Wen said, maybe, they will be back soon. Lin Qun realized that he seemed to have been unconscious for a while. About half a minute, or a minute, he didn't know. At the last moment of falling, he held the dead man's resurrection in his palm, thinking that if the situation was not right, he would activate it immediately. But it seemed he was not crushed to death. He was still in a gigantic state, with a physical fitness of 64, and was very resistant to beating. His body was sticky. Those were the unlucky Bakaton divers who were crushed to death by him. They provided Lin Qun with the last line of defense. With Mario's jump, that violated the laws of physics, and fell to the ground, Lin Qun did not suffer any impact from the fall. But despite this, his body was still burning with pain, as if he was pressed by a concrete slab. After all, his previous injuries were also very serious. He used all his strength to lift the concrete slab. Mario's strength bonus has not ended yet, but he has lost too much blood, and is seriously injured, and he can no longer exert the power of this skill. Each attribute is a direct reflection of the physical ability in the prime state, but reality is not a game after all, and the physical state will directly affect the performance of all attributes. However, the concentration technique is still working. In addition, the previous energy potion is constantly maintained. His energy has been at full value, so he shook his head slightly and woke up completely. He crawled out of the ruins and stood up step by step. The scene outside came into view, the flames spreading everywhere, the ruins of collapsed buildings, the ruins of sailing ships, and the entangled limbs and arms were everywhere, burying everything. This is a real doomsday scene. In the blurred vision, there were flames and wreckage all around, and then there was blood that no one knew who it belonged to. There were frequent explosions in the corners. There were only a few lives left. Lin Qun knew that he had to leave here as soon as possible. The gigantism was about to end. He made too much noise. The Bakatons must have heard the news and came. He didn't forget to take a look at his gains. The experience was enough to upgrade. The net contribution points left were 237 points. There were about 100 people on the Bakaton sailing ship. At least 90% of them died in the crash and Lin Qun's previous killings on it. In addition, when Lin Qun and Zhao Yi fought together at the beginning, they killed many people on the ground. After deducting the consumption, this number was very impressive, more than Lin Qun expected. He struggled to stand up. He had to leave as soon as possible. Just now in the bridge, he had seen two sailing ships coming towards him. He was not stupid. He had just experienced a big battle and was not an Iron Man. He would definitely not be able to face two more sailing ships. The wind was strong and the best way was to run away. He had not yet finished his giantization. With Mario's jump, a double jump, could at least jump 100 meters, which was enough for him to run. Lin Qun stumbled to his feet and saw a Bakaton. Half of its body was smashed, but it was still holding a gun and wanted to shoot at Lin Qun. But before it could fire, two deep divers rushed out from one side, biting it madly and tearing it apart. Those were the last two deep divers of Lin Qun. Most of the rest died in various ways. He had already climbed out of the ruins and was trying to hold up his body. He guessed that there should be many Bakatons in the ruins. When he boarded the sailing ship, he killed less than 1/3 of the Bakatons at most. The rest all fell with the ship. Some were killed by explosions and some survived. But no one knew where they were buried. Lin Qun didn't have the time or energy to dig through the ruins and kill them one by one. He struggled to stand up and prepared to let the two deep divers take him away. The gigantism should be over soon, just in time. But before he could move, he suddenly realized something, and his movement suddenly froze. He raised his head stiffly. Just then he saw that in the sky, at some point, a godlike shadow floated, looking down at him indifferently. Noticing that Lin Qun had discovered it, it slowly said with a simultaneous translation device, "It was you who killed Li Nu. Amazing. You are the second most powerful human I have ever seen. Maybe you also know your number one. What was his name?" "It seems to be Qun. In Xing Xing Square. He almost made me bleed. I thought he was a miracle, but I didn't expect that there is another you here. You humans are really surprising. It's a pity that you are going to die too. I can also give you the same honor. You can tell me your name." Its voice was relaxed and comfortable. It didn't take Lin Qun seriously at all. Lin Qun looked at it, listened to these words. His lips trembled slightly because of anger, but the light in his eyes was getting crazy and shrill. The gigantism has not ended yet, and the sailing ship is still a certain distance away. Bastion is close at hand. This is a situation he has never wanted before. Bastion is no longer in the layers of Bastion's army, but is close at hand, right in front of him. He doesn't have to take risks. He can face it and challenge it. Lin Qun didn't kill it, but it walked out of the army and came in front of him. A bold idea suddenly emerged in Lin Qun's mind. Maybe he can try to see if he can kill Bastion before running away. Even if he fails, he has the resurrection of the dead in the time belt, and he can escape again. Such an opportunity is rare. Why not try it? Once the gigantism disappears, Lin Qun is worried that he will never have this opportunity again. Lin Qun's footsteps stopped completely at this moment. His arm was pointed downward, ready to pull out the key card from his bag at any time, but his eyes slowly raised up, looking towards the sky, towards Bastion. Regardless of whether it would work or not, he had to give it a try. To give himself an explanation. To give an explanation to those who died. Chapter 90. Sorry to bother you. The gigantic transformation will end in less than a minute. At this moment, Lin Qun's physical fitness is as high as 64 points, and he can hit a headshot of 128 points. As early as the first time he drew the gigantic transformation card, Lin Qun wanted to try it on Bastion 128 points. Maybe there is a chance, but he is not sure. Later, when the war started, Bastion no longer moved alone outside, and he could not kill his way into the chaos, so Lin Qun never had a chance. And now, he can still upgrade. Lin Qun was standing up little by little. His body was 9 meters high, bathed in blood, and he stood up his chest inch by inch on the street of fire and ruins, staring at the Bastion in the sky. Bastion's words were shocking. Qun was indeed killed by him, and Qun didn't even make it bleed in the end. Its tone was contemptuous and proud. It had such confidence, and it was its strength that supported it. It has more than 30,000 contribution points. According to what Lin Qun heard in the survivor base, the contribution points that ordinary humans can provide are generally around 10 points. Only those with higher levels can provide more experience, but the experience corresponding to these 30,000 contribution points does not represent all of it. Before arriving at Blue Star, it was already powerful enough. What level is it? Can I succeed? I want to see how powerful you are. Lin Qun's heart was filled with anger. Looking at its arrogant face, he could not help but think of that day it should pay the price for its killing. But Lin Qun was not blinded by anger. He noticed that behind Bastion, in the distance in the sky, 2 sailing ships were approaching. He didn't have much time, but he didn't take action immediately. Instead, he answered Bastion's question. Lin Qun, that's my name. He was talking nonsense here to buy himself time. His experience was enough to upgrade, and if he upgraded directly, he could also increase his physical fitness a little more. Even a little. What if it was just this little bit? Exclamation mark. Lin Qun's attributes changed again silently. Name, Lin Qun. Level 10, 7,900/16,000. Strength 38. Agility 17 constitution. 66 energy. 32/32 talent. Card draw bonus ability. Lin Qun's basic strength and constitution reached 19 and 33, which doubled to 38 and 66. With the headshot girl skill, you can kill anyone with a constitution below 132 points. Before the sailing ship arrives, he has a chance to try to see if he can headshot Bastion. In the time he has gained, Lin Qun has quietly observed the surroundings and prepared a plan B if he fails. He will retreat immediately. Even if he can't beat Bastion today, he can come again tomorrow. Anyway, as long as he is alive and develops, he believes that with his ability, he will kill Bastion one day. The time he should have gained has been gained. Lin Qun didn't say a word, stared at the other party, and directly activated the headshot girl skill. The distance of 50 meters between the two is enough. Lin Qun, I remember your name. Bastion was still responding to what Lin Qun had just said. It didn't seem to care whether Lin Qun had other intentions or not. But after responding, it suddenly paused and said, is this how you killed Jilinu? What kind of ability is this? And below it, Lin Qun didn't answer, but his face was rapidly turning pale. Because he was madly using the ability of headshot girl. 2 points of energy deducted. No reaction. Continue. 34 points. He can use it 17 times. No interval, no pause. If you can't directly blow the head, then blow the eyes, nose, mouth, ears, key organs. But Bastion in the sky didn't move at all. It just tilted its head slightly, and its 4 eyes watched with interest as Lin Qun's face gradually turned pale. It was feeling Lin Qun's ability. At first, it was still joking. In its eyes, this human who tried to attack it was like a jumping clown. It didn't intend to stop it, or even fight back. It wanted to appreciate the desperate look of this human who tried hard to the end. Moreover, it also felt that Lin Qun's ability was a little strange, and wanted to feel it more. It could clearly feel the impact of Lin Qun's ability on it, although those abilities could not clearly kill it. But then its expression became a little confused, as if it didn't quite understand. Then it frowned, and finally, a solemn look appeared in its 4 eyes. When Lin Qun used it for the 16th time, it suddenly raised its hand and wiped the corner of its eye. A drop of blood flowed from the corner of its eye. Qizichuan couldn't make it bleed until his death. But Lin Qun did it. Something unusual finally emerged in its pupils. It lowered its eyes and looked at the human on the ground. A trace of seriousness and solemnity finally emerged in its eyes. Amazing. You are the most powerful human I have ever seen. This ability is too terrible. If it weren't for me, no Bastion in the East District could face you without dying. Die. Human. While speaking, Bastion had already made a move. There was no contempt in his eyes. He took Lin Qun seriously and wanted to kill him as soon as possible. At this time, Lin Qun could no longer hold on. He fell to his knees on the ground with a plop, gasping for breath, and seemed to be waiting to die. But despite this, Bastion still mobilized his telekinesis and blasted him with all his strength. Lin Qun's blood was almost drained, his energy was exhausted, his head was half supported, and his blood red eyes were bleeding. It was too much of a difference. Bastion. Its physique was far more than 132. He shot it in the head 16 times in his gigantic state, and only let it shed a drop of blood. The effect of the gigantic size was disappearing, and Lin Qun's size began to shrink. Bastion's telekinesis was pouring in from all directions like a tide. His body with a physical fitness of 66 points could only last for a few seconds at most. But these few seconds were enough. Lin Qun did not indulge in fear. He knew very well that, if he could not kill it now, it did not mean that he could not kill it in the future. Who did not grow up from weak to strong, step by step? As the saying goes, if you keep the green mountains, you will never worry about the lack of firewood. He had just tested it with all his strength, and the result was that he was not the opponent of this Bastion at the moment. Then there was nothing to hesitate about. Immediately start the back move and prepare to retreat. As an old Yin 13, Lin Qun seemed to be desperate with all his strength, but he had already thought of the retreat. Lin Qun seemed to be at the end of his strength and dying, but in fact he had stretched his arm to the Kyankan bag and covered it with his body. In a place where Bastion could not see, He had already grasped the women's time belt in his hand and started it very decisively. "Sorry to bother you. I can't beat you now, so I won't bother with you. I'm running away." The moment Bakayan made his move, Lin Qun also made his move. He directly activated the time belt. Time went back. Everything directly pulled back to 20 seconds ago. This was Lin Qun's backup plan. One more chance, allowing him to make a move at will just now, to see how powerful Bakayan is. If things are impossible, he will immediately go back 20 seconds to activate plan B. The best of the 36 strategies is to run away. When you want to make a move, make it as much as you can, and if you fail, turn back time and run away. Chapter 91 Time Reversal. 20 seconds. The moment the time belt was activated, Lin Qun seemed to see a white fluorescent light flashing, and then, when he came back to his senses, his body was still in a gigantic state. Bakayan was still high up, looking at him in confusion. Lin Qun reacted, and immediately looked at his energy value. From his energy consumption, he could tell the approximate time. At this moment, his energy value was still 20 points. He hadn't made Bakayan bleed yet, but he had already realized that something was wrong with his ability. This was almost the same time that Lin Qun had calculated at the beginning. Lin Qun didn't use the headshot girl skill again. He glanced at Bakayan, turned around and ran, leaped up, and jumped directly. With his giant body, he could jump more than 50 meters away in one arc jump. Bakayan was stunned for a moment. He was feeling the power of the human in front of him, and from the other party's attack just now, it didn't look like he was going to run away. Who would have thought that this person would turn around and run away? He wanted to attack immediately, but looking at this scene, he suddenly became dazed. It seems that it was not originally like this. He seemed not to be running like this. He seemed to have done something else just now. Bakayan frowned and immediately felt that everything that happened in front of him was not right. No, how could this be possible? How could I be in a trance? Bakayan reacted immediately, cleared his mind, suppressed his complicated thoughts, and prepared to take down Lin Qun first. If he caught or killed this human first, there would be many ways to ask him out. But before it made a move, two deep divers took the initiative to pounce on it. The two deep divers were no match for Bakayan, and were killed instantly, but the time wasted was enough for Lin Qun. Lin Qun had thought of this escape route a long time ago. He observed that behind him, in the opposite direction of the fall of the Bakatan sailing ship, although the buildings were also hit, they were still intact. Therefore, at this moment, while he sacrificed the last two deep divers to buy time for himself, he directly crashed into the buildings behind him. With his huge body and size, he crashed through them. The smoke and dust were boiling and covered the four directions. Before landing, he took advantage of the cover of the collapsed building to change direction and jumped forward for the second time. After landing, he jumped again. 2 consecutive jumps in the air. In a few breaths, Lin Qun had jumped hundreds of meters. He endured the injuries on his body and jumped frantically. He was the best at running and escaping. That was all learned from eating chicken. Even if there were many teams running around, he could pass through thousands of troops and find a building to hide on the second floor without being discovered. The layers of smoke and dust and the intricate buildings in the city of Modu all became Lin Qun's best defense at this moment. His 9-meter height was very tall for humans and Bakatans, but among the bustling city buildings, it was nothing at all. Bakayan behind was dumbfounded, staring at this scene in amazement. It had never seen anyone run so fast and so decisively. He ran cleanly and smoothly, and in a few seconds, he had already jumped hundreds of meters. Moreover, with his huge body, how could he jump so far at once? At this time, Bakayan's telekinesis could not catch up with Lin Qun's running speed. A moment later, in the smoke and dust of a collapsed building, where was Lin Qun's figure? In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. He even ran directly into the building to cover himself. What kind of ruthless character is this? Running so decisively? Exclamation mark. In just a moment, Lin Qun not only ran out of its sight, but also ran out of its power coverage. It was impossible to catch up. Bakayan did not chase him anymore, but frowned slowly, thinking carefully, and he felt more and more that something was wrong. The order of these things happening in front of him was wrong. especially that key trance. The more he thought about it, the more wrong it felt. If it hadn't been in a trance that time, it would have been impossible for it to catch that human being with only the two little monsters blocking it. The strength of the two sides was still very different. Its physical fitness was as high as 212. The attacks of that human being just now were not worth mentioning to it. Only this trance made it think more and more that something was wrong, and even had an inexplicable, creepy feeling. No, this human must have used some weird means. This human may be a huge threat. At this time, two sailing ships were coming from two directions. Bastion was in doubt. No, something is wrong. The human who killed Lin is wrong. He must have done something and changed something. The more Bastion thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. He quickly gave orders to the two sailing ships. Immediately, cast a net to search the nearby area. That person was seriously injured and dying. Although he ran away, he couldn't keep running. Look in that direction. Dig 3 feet into the ground to find that human being for me. The other Bastion warriors were all terrified. They had never seen Bastion attach so much importance to a human being, and they had never seen any human being escape from Bastion's hands. This human being was the most powerful human being they had ever seen. The two Bastion sailing ships quickly lowered their altitude, and while deploying a large number of Bastion warriors, they also activated various biological detection devices to search for Lin Qun everywhere. The V-shaped battleships flew at a low altitude at a rapid speed. Soon, the front V-shaped fighter really found the target. Lin Qun was 2 kilometers away, and his gigantism had ended. Without the physical bonus of 66, his injuries were too serious. He could only find a place to hide urgently. He hid in a ruin and half fainted. He was unconscious, but his luck was obviously not good enough. He was directly discovered and locked by this V-shaped battleship. The V-shaped fighter instantly lowered its altitude and flew at a low altitude. Under the direct instruction of Bastion, it launched a missile to kill this human being directly. Bastion had no intention of catching him alive. It didn't care if Lin Qun had any strange abilities. It would just kill him, and there would be no threat. Apart from anything else, Lin Qun's means of escaping had already opened Bastion's eyes and made him dumbfounded. In this case, it would be better to kill him directly and cleanly than to waste time catching him alive and causing unexpected changes. However, at the moment, when the missiles were coming, a slender figure suddenly jumped out from the corner where Lin Qun was unconscious and hiding. She moved very quickly and carried Lin Qun away. For her, a living person as big as Lin Qun was as easy as carrying a chicken. In the V-shaped battleship's bombardment, she was chased by flames and explosions all the way, but her running speed was ridiculously fast. She was not affected by a single missile. She carried Lin Qun and ran into the ruins of the city at a brisk pace. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared. Behind her, a large number of Bastion airships and ground personnel conducted a carpet search. They would not stop until they found Lin Qun. 10 minutes later, the gate of the survivor base of the 6th prison was wide open, and Zhao Yi's convoy entered quickly. Medical staff and expert teams rushed in. The wounded were transferred for treatment as soon as possible, and the experts and research materials brought back from the survivor base in Xingxing Square were sent to the depths of the survivor base as soon as possible. On the military side, the division commander Fu Kai was also alarmed and had been keeping a close eye on the situation over there. Unfortunately, the second round of reconnaissance aircraft was also destroyed by the subsequent arrival of the Bastion sailing ship. However, the existing information shows that Lin Qun does not seem to be dead because Bastion has begun a comprehensive search. This Lin Qun, his ID has not disappeared, he is still alive. Fu Kai murmured in a low voice, and his eyes could not hide his surprise, and he even said with some excitement, one person sank a Bastion sailing ship, facing Bastion, who is ranked 7th in the Magic City, but was able to retreat unscathed. In my East District, there is such a top powerhouse. Find him as much as possible. Find him faster than the Bastions. Pick him up, but don't bring him back here. Fu Kai's eyes moved, looking at the two sailing ships in the picture, and the fire was reflected in his eyes. He knew that the next target of the Bastions would be them. He was excited that humans also had such a strong man, but he was also deeply helpless because they could not protect or cultivate such a strong man now. Even if he knew in advance that Lin Qun's combat power was far beyond expectations, he couldn't do anything, and it was very likely that he would send Lin Qun out to perform the mission. In the battlefield of the Magic City, the balance of war still tilted towards the Bastion civilization. Moreover, it had begun to completely collapse. After a long silence, Fu Kai turned around and issued an order to start implementing the final plan prepared by the survivor base of the 6th prison. At this time, Xiao Yi and his troops were immediately reassigned, but Xiao Yi still left one person to guard Li Ji and wait for him to wake up. Li Ji's injury was not serious, he was just shocked, and he woke up in less than half an hour after returning to the survivor base. He was a little dazed, and after a moment he came to his senses and grabbed the people around him. Where is Brother Lin? Where is Brother Lin? Where is he? Where is he? But the people around him just looked at him blankly. That person was Qian Yingying. Qian Yingying, Li Xing, and Zhao Wen all came over and surrounded him, all very worried. On the other side, the little soldier left by Xiao Yi gritted his teeth and said, Mr. Lin is missing now, but don't worry, Mr. Lin is now the #1 in the East District. His ID has not disappeared, which means he is not dead. The higher-ups have already issued orders to search for Mr. Lin with all their strength. Don't worry. Qian Yingying sat by Li Ji's window, looking at his expression. Lin Qun is very powerful, far beyond our imagination, and he was able to escape even when facing Bastion. Besides, he has not disappeared from the list, and he should be out of danger now. He will definitely survive, but we must make a choice now. The survivor base has ordered all the survivors in the survivor base to evacuate urgently. The military is ready to fight to the death with the Bastions. We must make a choice now. Should we leave or stay? Chapter 92. Girl carries me and runs away. Lin Qun had a strange dream. In the dream, he fell into the deep sea and sank all the way down. In the bottomless darkness, a bunch of glowing lantern fish emerged. The faint light they emitted illuminated the great indescribable existence in the deeper depths. He instinctively felt suffocated. Until the next moment, he suddenly stretched out countless tentacles, grabbed Lin Qun's neck and shook it, and shouted in the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants in Mandarin dubbing, "You killed all my deep diver brothers. All of them." Then he woke up and found that he was really shaking. He was carried on the shoulders of a girl and ran in what seemed to be a hospital. But the girl's shoulders were not very broad and there was not much flesh. Lin Qun was fine when he was unconscious, but he was almost vomiting blood when he woke up. Lin Qun's head was a little dizzy, and the thought that came to his mind at this time was, what kind of woman is so strong that she can carry me and run like crazy? The woman was also surprised and quickly put Lin Qun down, staring at him in the dim light. "Are you awake? Are you okay?" It was a delicate woman's face. Lin Qun remembered her. It was Chu Yaoi. He was a little surprised. How could he be with Chu Yaoi? Lin Qun glanced at his attributes. He should not have been unconscious for a long time, because his energy had just recovered to 23 points. In the unconscious state, Lin Qun's passive concentration technique also stopped working. However, the benefits of high energy are obvious. Although Lin Qun is weak, his brain becomes particularly clear as soon as he wakes up. "I was unconscious, and you saved me. How long has it been now?" "An hour and a half." Lin Qun tried to stand up. He felt that his condition did not seem so bad. In the giant state, his physical fitness was as high as 66 points, and his ability to resist beatings was amazing. He did not suffer any fatal injuries. Now he has shrunk back and looks scary, but his key organs are fine. But he seemed to have lost too much blood and his body was very weak. He just stood for a while and his eyes went black. His whole body was burning with pain, and he was about to sit back. Chu Yaoi supported him. "It's me. You'd better not move. I gave you a special healing liquid that can be exchanged in the contribution point mall." Chu Yaoi said, "It has been 1 hour and 37 minutes since I took you out." She was still as cold as ever, speaking in an orderly manner and with a natural sense of distance, but she looked at Lin Qun with some surprise at this time. Obviously, she didn't expect that Lin Qun could clearly judge how long he had been unconscious just after waking up. Hearing this, Lin Qun didn't understand that it should be Chu Yaowei who saved him after he fell into a coma. He remembered that Chu Yaowei's strength was not weak. He straightened his face. "Thank you. I will return the contribution points you spent on me with the same exchange items." "No need. I took the risk to save you because you are strong enough, stronger than me. If you are alive, the probability of my survival will increase. You don't have to be polite to me." Chu Yaowei's answer made Lin Qun a little speechless. But this woman is indeed clear-minded. But what Lin Qun didn't know was that in Chu Yaowei's eyes, Lin Qun was also a monster. An hour and a half ago, she was also at the battlefield, but she did not come with the military, but came from the direction of the survivor base in Xingxing Square, and was isolated from the entire military. When she came, the battle was almost over. She witnessed Xia King being killed instantly. When she saw Lin Qun rushing into the sky, she thought Lin Qun was also dead, but she did not expect that it was Lin Qun who killed the Bastion 15 instantly, sank a Bastion sailing ship, and even rushed out in front of Bastion. She came out of Langcheng Daijing community and wandered around the East District for so long, but she had never seen such a strong human. This made her determined to rescue Lin Qun. However, she couldn't say these words, and only said, "If you want to thank someone, thank yourself. Your physical fitness should be ridiculously high. Although your injuries did not hit your vital parts, you had too many wounds, and lost more blood than the critical value of normal people. But you not only did not die, but you were able to wake up. Well, this shows that your energy should also be ridiculously high." Indeed, Lin Qun's physical fitness and energy were both over 30. The most important thing was that when he faced the attack of the Bastion sailing ship, he was in a giant form with a physical fitness of 66. If it weren't for the machine gun that shot him, normal bullets wouldn't even be able to break his skin. Where are the Bastions? Where is Xiaoyi? Did the people who came with me escape successfully? How is the survivor base of the 6th prison? Don't worry, they didn't catch up. I got rid of them. Now we are in the East District Hospital. I will go to the blood bank to find blood for you. If you don't give me a blood transfusion, you will die, no matter how high your physical fitness is. Your wounds also need to be disinfected. Once infected, it will be troublesome. I don't know how the survivor base is," Chu Yaowei said, supporting Lin Qun forward, and said, "As for those military people, they should have escaped successfully. Bastion did not order to chase them. He has been chasing you." At this point, she paused slightly, but still couldn't help but said, "Even if it was Kiza-chan, I didn't see Bastion take him so seriously." Lin Qun showed a helpless but a smile and said, "Maybe I'm the one who jumps more and deserves a beating." Hearing that Li Ji and his team had escaped successfully, Lin Qun also breathed a sigh of relief. This battle was extremely dangerous, but the final result was good. Bastion was still invincible, but the Bastions also paid an unimaginable heavy price in this battle. The most important thing is that their mission objectives were all achieved. Lin Qun did not die, and Li Ji and his team were able to escape unscathed. At this time, Chu Yaowei found a safe place and let Lin Qun rest here first. She stood up, asked about Lin Qun's blood type, and prepared to find the blood bank. Before Lin Qun didn't wake up, she didn't dare to leave Lin Qun alone somewhere, but now it's different. Although Lin Qun is weak, he is conscious and has enough energy. The shoulder cannon and headshot female skills can all be activated, and he has the power to protect himself. Lin Qun panted heavily and had to half support himself to sit in his seat. He found that, when he was seriously injured, his energy could still be restored, but the dark energy strangely did not recover and became zero. It seems that, if the energy is not restored, he will die soon, and the dark energy is not restored because of the serious injury. Lin Qun felt a burning pain on his body. He shifted his attention and began to study his spoils of war. His experiences had been upgraded. What remained were contribution points. His total contribution points reached an unprecedented number 267 points. And now it was past midnight. He completed the settlement with the first ranking of regional humans and obtained an additional 30 contribution points. Now his ranking was far higher than the one behind him who was still working. One battle, more than 200 contribution points. Although it was fierce and dangerous, it was worth it. Moreover, he tested Bastion's ability. It was indeed stronger than he could imagine. With a physique of 128, it still couldn't kill it instantly. Of course, Lin Qun knew that his strength was getting stronger and stronger. This would only be the beginning. It would become easier and easier to obtain 200 contribution points in the future. And now, he had to think about how to spend these 200 contribution points. Lin Qun narrowed his eyes. Chapter 93 Synthesis. Fairy's Gaze card. Contribution points were unprecedentedly high, and Lin Qun didn't know what to do for a moment. Finally, he made a choice. He would use 50 contribution points to draw cards directly, and then use the remaining 210 contribution points to upgrade his card drawing talent, 100 to continue drawing cards, and finally keep 10 points for emergencies. Moreover, if necessary, he could exchange for some items. As his attention shifted, Lin Qun clearly felt that his body didn't hurt that much, but he was still dizzy from losing too much blood. Chu Yaowei had bandaged him simply, but the wounds everywhere were still bleeding. The hospital was cold and silent, with no one in sight. It was also silent outside. Through the window, he could only see a corner of the broken city. This hospital, the 6th prison, and Xingxing Square formed a triangle. The distance Chu Yaowei took him out was also far enough. This further proved another point. Chu Yaowei's strength was not bad. She was also a master. Is she on the leaderboard? What place is she? Maybe it was because of the severe blood loss. Lin Qun's head was a little dazed, and he turned around for a long time before he started to draw cards. In the first round of card drawing, draw 5 times shallowly. The first card is a supply card. Name, Strawberry, asterisk 1000G. Type, supply card. Description, used to obtain 1000G of fresh strawberries. Please use in time. Do you want to materialize? Strawberries, it's actually strawberries. What does strawberry taste like? Lin Qun's mouth unconsciously opened slightly. With the world as it is now, it is almost impossible to eat strawberries. Fruits are more rare and precious than beef. In the survivor base, a few small tomatoes can even be exchanged for a golden melon seed. But he drew the strawberry supply card, and everything became possible. Lin Qun held the card, and glanced at the direction where Chu Yaowei disappeared. Maybe, they can eat it together. It can be regarded as a reward for her. Although Chu Yaowei said no, Lin Qun is not that kind of person. It is not his style to take advantage of others for nothing. But he did not materialize it immediately, but looked at the next one first. It is not completely safe now. If you don't take it out in a hurry, what will happen if it breaks? This strawberry is very valuable. It is something that cannot be bought with money or even contribution points. Although the contribution point mall has everything, the only applications in the contribution point mall are all for the service of the civilization war. There is no such thing. At this time, the second card also slowly emerged. Another card, from the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Name, Song of the Holy Land. Type, effect card, consumable. Description, when this card is used, the battlefield will be filled with songs from the Holy Land. Within 10 kilometers, the physical fitness of all creatures of the same civilization will increase by 2 points for half an hour. Bonus card grade, E level. Lin Qun was slightly stunned when looking at this card. Because this is a large-scale effect card, and it is a positive bonus amplification, which can improve the physical fitness of all humans within 10 kilometers. Isn't this a battle song? Everyone stands up, and it's a full 2 points of physical fitness. Although Lin Qun's physical fitness is exaggerated, reaching 30, he knows what 2 points of physical fitness mean. Ordinary people with 8 points of physical fitness can directly pull up to the standard value of 10 points, and the soldiers on the battlefield generally have 10 points of physical fitness. If it increases by 2 points, then all members will reach the human limit, the level of special forces. Looking at the entire battlefield, it is a huge leap in overall combat capability. The only flaw is that the duration is still too short. Only half an hour, which may be the reason why this card is only E level. Maybe it can be used when facing the back at Tanami. Lin Qun was a little excited and put this card away. He was seriously injured and grimaced in pain when he moved a little. He didn't rush to draw the third card, but panted and took a breath. He felt that, even if his energy had recovered to 24 points, he would faint again, and his body couldn't bear it. When will Chu Yaowei come back? Lin Qun rested for a while, exhaled, and looked at the third card. The third card is name, fairies aromatherapy, type, item card, description. Use this item card to obtain an aromatherapy from an unknown fairy, which can light up and dispel all evil spirits. If you get close to it, you may fall into a state of insanity. The holder is not affected by this effect. Special note, this card is from the Fairies New Clothes set. Collect the Fairies Concentration, Fairies Embroidered Shoes, Fairies Hairpin, and Fairies Aromatherapy to synthesize a Fairy Gaze card, and you will get the attention of the fairy. Materialize? This is the fourth fairy card, Fairies Aromatherapy. The moment Lin Qun saw the name of this card, he was excited, because he actually collected a set of cards. Fairies Concentration, Fairies Embroidered Shoes, Fairies Hairpin, Fairies Aromatherapy. He has collected them all. But what Lin Qun was a little concerned about was that the description of this aromatherapy seemed a little wrong. Is this description aromatherapy? It is normal to dispel evil spirits, but how can someone who approaches also go insane? This is a fairy's thing. Could it be? Lin Qun suddenly had a guess in his mind. He might have thought wrong before. Fairies are not necessarily the kind that float like fairies. There is another type that is ruthless, powerful, and even weird, and is also the fairy in the immortal cultivation and mythology system of the world he came from. So who is this person? Lin Qun did not rush to exchange the aromatherapy, but stared at the picture in front of him. Because with the collection of 4 cards, the synthesis is automatically completed. This synthesis will not take away Lin Qun's previous 4 cards, but it's just a conceptual synthesis. Like the card drawing animation, it quickly emerges, and then merges together, and emits light together. Then, a golden card, that Lin Qun has never seen before appeared. This is a golden card. It clearly says, Fairy's Gaze. Lin Qun did not rush to see the effect of the card, but turned his eyes, and looked at the figure on the card. The previous cards, the style of the fairy was bright, and very similar to the fairy that Lin Qun thought, but this time, the style of the painting suddenly changed. On the top of a cliff covered with dark clouds, the grass and trees on the ground were low. She seemed to be in the world, but there was only a back figure, with her hair flying, as if she came from the mythical world. That temperament seemed to be able to dominate the ages. Just a sidelong glance. A gaze, as if from the painting, wanted to see through Lin Qun, who was looking at this card from beginning to end. Just looking at this card, Lin Qun actually felt a chill all over his body, as if he was facing the abyss. He seemed to have an impression of this person, but who was she? Chapter 94, A-level card, strange effect. Lin Qun thought for a long time, but had no idea. He just felt that the name and identity of this unknown fairy were clearly hovering on the edge of his mind. He seemed to be able to remember it in the next second, but he still had no result. After thinking for a long time, Lin Qun did not plan to think about it anymore. He was ready to see if the effect of this card could give him a glimpse of the clues. Name, Fairy's Gaze, type, effect card, bonus card grade, A-level, description. This effect card has 3 effects. 1. Hold this effect card, place the fairy's incense, fairy's embroidered shoes, and fairy's hairpin, and pray to the fairy. While using the fairy's concentration technique, you will receive a special gaze from an unknown fairy. Depending on the fairy's mood and the degree of favorability towards you, you may get extreme luck for 2 minutes, or extreme bad luck for 2 minutes. Cooling time, 12 hours. 2. Hold this effect card to draw cards, and you have a certain chance of drawing skill cards, item cards, and effect cards related to the unknown fairy. 3. You have received the continuous attention of the unknown fairy. When you are doing something, you may get more attention from her, and get her blessing. Special note, this card is a combination of fairy cards. You have received the continuous attention of the unknown fairy. Please perform seriously. A-level card. 3 effects. This is definitely the card with the most effects that Lin Qun has drawn so far. The content on it also made Lin Qun's heart move. Combined with the back figure on the screen, he vaguely had a guess in his heart. Fairy is just a title. Maybe she is more than a fairy. She may be. Lin Qun is a little concerned about the fact that the effect of this card is not weak, but it has 2 extreme sides. Effect 1. That is equivalent to praying to the fairy. The effect is exaggerated. 2 minutes of extreme bad luck or good luck, without even a middle state. However, Lin Qun looked at this effect and suddenly realized that this effect seems to be applicable to his own card drawing. If you can draw a card with extreme good luck, wouldn't it be possible to ascend to heaven in one step? With extreme good luck, you will definitely be able to draw the top level cards in the prize pool. It takes about half a minute for Lin Qun to activate a talent skill to draw a card, which means that one extreme luck can be used to draw a card 4 times. In this way, the benefits are maximized. Thinking of this, Lin Qun was excited. Isn't this a guaranteed good card? Of course, if you draw bad luck. The second effect is also exciting. The fairy's gaze seems to have created a certain connection between the two. Lin Qun will have a higher chance of drawing her item cards, skill cards and effect cards when drawing cards. Although the things in the card set are not very good now, Lin Qun is not stupid. He can see that this fairy is an extremely powerful person. When the card pool is upgraded, if he can draw something related to her, it must be a top treasure. Moreover, perhaps at that time, his guess can be confirmed. After all, just this concentration technique, embroidered shoes, aromatherapy and hairpins are too casual. Which fairy doesn't have them? And the fairy's things are not fixed. They must have a variety of images in their own lives. As for the third effect, Lin Qun guessed that this something should be something that could resonate with this unknown fairy, or that actions and events related to her would receive her direct attention. Blessing. It should be that things that she approves of will be blessed. This effect looks similar to the first one, but Lin Qun realized that it was not that simple. The first effect was just good luck or bad luck, but this one is a direct blessing, which is likely to give him a direct blessing of strength, or an epiphany. Lin Qun immediately thought of 10,000 years of cultivation. At this time, the fifth card has also emerged. It is Mario card. Name, Mario. Mario, careless skill card. Type, skill card. Inherent, description. Use this skill card to gain Mario's carelessness. In this state, you will gain the negative states of careless and dizzy, but you will gain an additional 10 points of physical bonus. Lasts for 15 minutes. Cooldown time 3 hours. Special note, this card is one of the cards in the Mario deck. Collect the Mario Jump skill card, Mario Strength skill card, Mario Speed skill card, and Mario Carelessness card to synthesize the Super Mario character card, obtain all the abilities of Mario, and unlock the skill cartoon power. This is the third Mario card, Mario Carelessness card. Just looking at this effect, Lin Qun couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. However, this is in line with the setting of cartoon characters. You can be careless, but you can't die, even if you are careless. Therefore, a full 10 points of physical fitness are added. This is a very scary physical fitness addition. It directly adds a human standard value. I have become stupid and stronger? This is obviously a purely brainless skill. It's just that carelessness and confusion in the real world are somewhat dangerous. In short, loss of mind. I just don't know whether the impact is really big. If the impact is not very serious, it is still considerable. However, this skill is still very useful for Lin Qun. The advantages outweigh the disadvantages. If he were really on the battlefield with the skill of the headshot girl, his physical fitness would be increased by 10 points, which would be equivalent to the effect of 20 points. That is extremely terrifying. Lin Qun's current physical fitness is 33 points, and the headshot limit is 66. With this ability, it can be directly increased to 86. The cooling time is only 3 hours. Anyway, on the battlefield, as long as the reaction is not reduced, be a little careless, just don't be killed by stray bullets. The 5 consecutive draws are carried out continuously. After a card is drawn, Lin Qun holds it in his hand. It takes about 25 to 30 seconds for the next card to be automatically drawn. Lin Qun has no chance to pray first. But he is not in a hurry. This blessing ability, if you can get extreme good luck, will definitely produce good cards. He plans to wait until these 5 rounds of card drawing are over, and then upgrade the prize pool immediately. After upgrading the prize pool, he will draw cards again. At that time, it will not be too late to use this blessing effect. However, although he had collected all the fairy suit cards, he still had not collected all the Mario suits in this prize pool. However, there was only one of the 4 Mario cards left, and Lin Qun believed that it was only a matter of time before he could draw it. However, Lin Qun felt more and more dizzy, and his consciousness began to blur again. He felt as if he was about to faint again. But suddenly he had an idea and simply activated Mario's carelessness. Pull the physique to 43 points. The higher the physique, the stronger the physical quality, the faster the body recovers, and the more resistant it is. This is exactly what he needs most, now that he is injured. Using 43 points of physique to resist injuries is definitely much stronger than 33 points. It is said that some experts want to study the changes in body strength and recovery of different physiques, but unfortunately, due to limited conditions, progress has been slow. The next second, his eyes went black, and he fell on the bench in the corridor of the dead and dark hospital. The dementia effect of Mario's carelessness can also be offset in a coma. Lin Qun was not worried about this. His physical condition had just improved, and his energy was high. He should be able to wake up in a moment after a slight faint. On the contrary, he felt that the negative effect of Mario's carelessness did not seem to be very serious, and would not have much impact on others. Today's 3 updates are finished. Please support me. Chapter 95 She is not dead. When Lin Qun opened his eyes again, he found himself being carried on Chu Yaowe's shoulders again. Although this girl has a slender figure, she is surprisingly strong. Not only was she carrying Lin Qun on her shoulders, but her other hand was also pushing a small medical cart, on which were placed all kinds of messy medicines, blood bags and medical equipment. Lin Qun took a look. His physical fitness was still 43, which proved that he had not been unconscious for more than 15 minutes. The high physical fitness and energy continued to play a role. However, I didn't feel like I had lost my mind, did I? Is my IQ not high enough? This is a bit humiliating. Lin Qun coughed dryly, reminding Chu Yaowe that he had woken up. Chu Yaowe reacted and said, "Don't worry, I'll take you to another place first." As she said that, she carried Lin Qun and walked briskly. Lin Qun never dreamed of such a scene, being carried around by a girl. They seemed to be in the inpatient department of the hospital. It was dead silent here. The survivors would not come here to search for supplies, and the Bakutans would not appear here. This is actually a very safe place. Chu Yaowe obviously arranged Lin Qun here on purpose. It would take time for Lin Qun to recover and have a blood transfusion, and he needed a place that could guarantee his safety for a long time. Everything went smoothly afterwards. Chu Yaowe was an all-rounder and could even give Lin Qun an injection. You are lucky. The blood bank still has stock, and the hospital's blood bank has a separate power generation system. You don't have panda blood. Lin Qun couldn't help asking, what did you do before? Shopping mall manager. Shopping mall manager, can you do it? Don't stab me to death. Chu Yaowe raised her head and glanced at Lin Qun. Lin Qun covered his mouth with his other hand. This was not the words or thoughts that he would say under normal circumstances. It seemed that he was still affected by carelessness. Lin Qun simply remained silent. But after a while, he couldn't help but ask, shopping mall manager, is it the kind of employee with the title of manager or the management? At this time, Chu Yaowe had finished and started to give Lin Qun a blood transfusion. She stood up and glanced at Lin Qun. I also found antibiotics for you. You are so weak. Why are you talking so much? Lin Qun reacted. He remained silent. Chu Yaowe said, I'm a real management, the kind that earns an annual salary. Lin Qun took a breath. Earning an annual salary. That is a goal he may never achieve in his lifetime. Of course, that was before the end of the world. He couldn't help but say, then you definitely don't want the world to become like this, right? Of course. Chu Yaowe sat on one side and closed her eyes to rest. Lin Qun looked at her and calmed down. Mario's carelessness didn't seem to have much negative impact. After a moment, Chu Yaowe spoke again and suddenly said, Xia King is not dead. Lin Qun looked at her in surprise. Look, she's still on the leaderboard, 9th. Lin Qun then noticed that Xia King had not disappeared from the regional leaderboard and was still in 9th place. It was just that Lin Qun had been fighting before, and because of his serious injuries, he had hardly checked on her until now. This Although he didn't know how Xia King survived with such injuries, the survival of such a strong human made people feel relieved for no reason. How did she survive? But the two didn't say anything more. Lin Qun was not in a hurry to upgrade the card pool. As Chu Yaowei said, he was too weak and lost a lot of blood. If he couldn't get a blood transfusion in time, he would die, even if he had a high physique and energy. In fact, if it weren't for his extraordinary attributes, with the amount of blood he had lost along the way, even if he was lucky enough not to die, he should have been in a coma, let alone drawing cards. The biggest possibility was coma to death. Despite this, Lin Qun also needed to rest. He also took a look outside. The inpatient department was on the 16th floor, and from here you could see the bloody silhouette of the sky of the magic city. It was a long night. But apart from that, there was nothing more to see. Lin Qun didn't know what happened to Li Ji and the others at the survivor base of the 6th prison. But he understood that this was not an urgent matter. He needed to recover his condition first, and then improve himself as much as possible. The next time they met, he would kill Bakayan. Lin Qun lowered his eyelids. There was a hint of ferocity in his eyes. Bakayan didn't kill him in this battle. These 200 contribution points were the beginning of his tikiaf against the wind. In a daze, Lin Qun fell asleep. This time he didn't dream, and slept very deeply. When he opened his eyes again, the sky outside was already a little pale. He was still receiving a blood transfusion. Chu Yaowei replaced the blood bag for him. He turned his head, and took a look. Chu Yaowei was still sitting there, closing her eyes, and resting her mind in a cold manner. He didn't know whether she was awake or asleep. But she shouldn't be asleep, otherwise who changed the blood bag? Of course, Lin Qun was not such an unvigilant person, but he was indeed seriously injured, and his consciousness was drowsy. Lin Qun felt a little better. His physique was high enough, and he recovered quickly. After the blood transfusion, he ate something, and took a nap. He felt his strength was back, and the wounds on his body didn't hurt as much. After recovering a little, Lin Qun couldn't sit still anymore. With the enemy at hand and the magic city in crisis, it was not the time to relax and rest. Lin Qun immediately seized the time and prepared to start the next round of card drawing. This time, Lin Qun planned to upgrade the prize pool first and then draw cards. However, Lin Qun estimated that, after upgrading the prize pool, the contribution points he needed to draw cards would also increase. This was inevitable. But even if it increased, Lin Qun felt that he should be able to bear it. After all, it was not the time when the Bakatens had just landed. At that time, it was difficult for him to obtain contribution points, but now, his strength continued to improve, and he could quickly obtain contribution points, and he could also support a larger investment in contribution points for drawing cards. But before officially upgrading the prize pool to draw cards, Lin Qun did another thing first. He took out all the incense, embroidered shoes, and hairpins. According to the description of the fairy gaze card, he did the same thing, made a circle, and used the concentration technique, and then prepared to draw a card, his lips moving, and he muttered silently. Possessed by the European Emperor, blessed by the fairy, possessed by the European Emperor, give me amazing luck. Give me amazing luck. Lin Qun finished reciting, but there was no reaction for a while. He was a little confused, thinking, did I open it the wrong way? Suddenly, he felt like a thorn in his back. He was startled, and thought it was the fairy's gaze, but when he turned his head, he saw Chu Yaowei looking at him strangely. This girl, who was always calm and aloof, rarely showed a strange expression. You are. It turned out that it was not the fairy's gaze, but the gaze of this girl. Lin Qun scratched his head and was about to make up a few words, but suddenly his eyes lit up. Because in front of him, words that only he could see appeared. The blessing was successful. The unknown fairy cast a curious look at you, sensing who was calling her, and bestowing blessings on you. You have obtained the ultimate luck. Duration, 2 minutes. Yes, that unknown fairy must be extremely powerful. How could I sense her gaze? However, looking at the last line of text, Lin Qun instantly became excited. Success. The fairy's gaze. The ultimate luck is here. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo fanfic novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96. That day, people finally remembered. Lin Qun had not forgotten Chu Yao's searching eyes. He smiled and said, "This is a mess I found when I was looting before. I have a female companion in the survivor base, and I'm going to take it back to her." Chu Yao did not doubt him, glanced at it, and did not speak again. Instead, she turned her head again, closed her eyes, and closed her eyes to rest. On the other side, Lin Qun was already rolling up the things on the table without stopping, preparing to start drawing cards quickly. 2 minutes of time cannot be wasted. He was the first to spend 100 contribution points to upgrade his skills. In an instant, the description of his talent skill changed to a certain extent. Talent, card drawing bonus ability. Type, transmigrator talent unique, talent ability rating, super S level. Talent ability level, second level. Description, after testing, you are an individual from another world and civilization, and the only participant in that civilization. You will get a special bonus. You can obtain technological weapons, physical materials, fantasy skills and attribute bonuses from your world by drawing cards. Current number of card draws remaining. 0. From the data on this panel, except for the change in the level of the talent ability, the other descriptions are exactly the same as before. Lin Qun's mouth twitched, and his eyes moved downwards, but he saw the contribution points required for the upgraded talent ability to draw a card. 50 contribution points. Draw a card once. Lin Qun was shocked. This is so much more than before. This is something Lin Qun did not expect. He estimated that the number of contribution points would increase with the upgrade of skills and the card pool, but he did not expect that it would increase so much, directly increasing by 40 points compared to the original 10 points. However, Lin Qun quickly reacted. The consumption increased by 40. Then, the level of this round of card pool will also increase. Lin Qun was glad in his heart. Fortunately, he did not upgrade the talent skill in advance, otherwise, 50 contribution points would draw a card once. For him before, it would take a long time to draw a card once. But now, 50 contribution points are not difficult for Lin Qun to obtain. These thoughts were all fleeting, and Lin Qun's hands did not pause for a moment, and he immediately started to draw. He has 267 contribution points in total. He just drew a card and spent 50 points, and upgraded and spent 100 points. After upgrading, even if he spends 50 contribution points each time, he can draw a card twice. Here it comes. Just deduct 100 points first. Draw twice in a row. Lin Qun went crazy today. He has recovered a lot now, and his energy is full. His eyes are shining, staring at the screen, looking forward to what he can draw. The card slowly emerged. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. The picture on this card is a giant. Lin Qun almost thought he was seeing things. But the fact is, it is a giant standing tall. The world of Attack on Titan. Armored Titan card. The card slowly emerged. Lin Qun's eyes moved, and immediately looked down. Name, Armored Titan skill card. Type, skill card. Inherent. Description, use this skill card to transform into an armored titan with sufficient physical strength. The height is 15 meters. The agility attribute is increased to 1 times the original attribute. The strength attribute is increased to 3 times the original attribute. The physical attribute and the energy attribute are increased to 2 times the original attribute, and the whole body is covered with armor. The image and some characteristics of the transformed titan are closely related to the skill releaser. Tip, load this skill card to obtain 2 points of permanent physical bonus. Special note, this card is one of the Attack on Titan decks. Collect the Warhammer Titan, Beast Titan, Colossal Titan, Armored Titan, Attack Titan, Female Titan, Jaw Titan, and Card Titan cards to synthesize the Founding Titan card and obtain the ability Rumbling. Looking at the description on this card, Lin Qun's breathing was a little stagnant. It really is a Titan card, and it is an Armored Titan card with extremely strong single combat power. Extreme luck, it really does not deceive me. Moreover, this card is actually one of a series of cards, and also a series of sets of cards. If you collect 8 of the 9 giant cards, you can synthesize the founding titan card, and even obtain the terrifying ability of the earth rumbling. That is an extinction level ability. Once activated, Lin Qun's eyes glowed. If such an ability is activated, the ground forces of the Bastions and the magic city will be destroyed. Then he is equivalent to holding a mobile nuclear weapon. And the attributes of the armored titan card alone are exaggerated. Agility is doubled, strength is tripled, and physical fitness and energy are directly doubled. The remainder is directly up to 15 meters in height. The giant card he just used has become a garbage card in front of this card. This time, all attributes are improved. Unknown fairy, possessed by the European Emperor. Lin Qun was excited. Logically speaking, even if he upgraded his level 2 talent and the card pool level was also increased, it was unlikely that he would draw such a powerful card at the first draw. The reason why he could draw a top card at once was undoubtedly because of his extreme luck. He pulled it to the maximum. He drew a good card. He directly blocked ordinary cards and general cards. Moreover, the effect of the armored titan card is not only these data on the panel. Lin Qun has watched the anime Attack on Titan. He knows that after the giantization, the giant form will be lifted, and all injuries of the human body will be restored. Even broken arms and legs can be directly regrown. Of course, the premise here is, you have enough physical strength to activate the giant form skill. In the setting of the anime, transforming into a giant requires a lot of physical strength. If your injuries reach a certain level or your physical strength is insufficient, you can't activate this skill at all. This is an absolute premise. However, with the 2 permanent physical bonuses brought by the giant's ability, Lin Qun's physical fitness has reached 35 points. Under normal circumstances, physical recovery is slower than that of ordinary people, and physical recovery will be very fast, so there is no need to worry about this. Lin Qun couldn't help but get excited, and the injuries on his body didn't hurt anymore. If he transformed once, all his injuries would be healed immediately. It's time to let the world feel the fear from the giant. Of course, Lin Qun didn't have time to try the field transformation at this time. His eyes were moving quickly. The 2-minute European Emperor possession time has not ended yet. The second card is slowly emerging. Lin Qun looked over expectantly. The moment he saw it, his expression moved. Because he hadn't seen the content on the card yet, he first saw a golden flash like the fairy gaze card. This is another gold card, more powerful than the armored titan. However, the golden light of this card doesn't seem to last long. Chapter 97 Superman Transformation Times card. With the completion of the second card drawing, Lin Qun's 2-minute European Emperor possession was about to end. This time was just right, and all of his European Emperor abilities were used to draw cards, without any waste. If there was no delay before, he could draw 4 times in 2 minutes. But at this time, he was also looking at the card in front of him with some curiosity. This golden card is a golden card, but it doesn't seem so golden. This is. The first thing Lin Qun saw was an S. He was moved. Sure enough, this card is. Name, Superman Transformation Card. Type, Transformation Card. Consumable type time card asterisk 3 times. Transformation card grade, C level. Description, use this skill transformation card to transform into Kryptonian Kal-El in the Superman Man of Steel version. You will gain some of his characteristics and all his abilities while maintaining your own characteristics. Your original basic attribute panel and skills will be completely blocked, and you will gain Kal-El's panel data. The duration is 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Each point of basic physique can maintain the transformation for 6 seconds. Special note, because your physique is too different from the target of the transformation, your flesh and blood body cannot maintain the transformation state for a long time. If you force it to maintain, it will cause the body to collapse and die. Special note, this card is a transformation card count card. Using it will consume a lot of physical energy, and please pay attention to the remaining number of times the count card can be used. Superman, Man of Steel. Lin Qun took a breath. Looking at the effect of this card, he didn't know whether to be excited or depressed. Because although this is a Superman card, it is not a skill card with Superman's ability, but a transformation card, which is a type of card he has never seen before. This is obviously opened after upgrading the secondary card pool. This time, Lin Qun understood why the flashing time of the gold card was not as long as the Fairy's Gaze card, because it was a transformation card, not a real superhuman ability card. It was just a C level card. The real superhuman ability card might be A level. Lin Qun guessed that this should be related to his current card pool level. His card pool was still not high enough, so he could only draw the transformation card of the Superman Clark brothers, because there was no skill card in this card pool. After all, he was only in the second level card pool now. It was actually very exaggerated to be able to draw a C level card in the second level card pool. In order to obtain more powerful cards, it was also very important to continuously upgrade the card pool. Of course, if it were not for the extreme luck, it would seem to be extremely difficult for Lin Qun to draw such a card. And under the blessing of this extreme luck, Lin Qun's 2 consecutive cards were very powerful, saving a lot of card drawing consumption, and directly produced 2 super powerful cards. However, the 2-minute world is actually enough for Lin Qun to activate the card drawing ability 4 times. In other words, if he draws the ultimate luck once, he can only use 4 cards at most. Fortunately, Lin Qun's contribution points are only enough to draw cards twice. If he has more contribution points in the future, he will have to worry about drawing cards more than 4 times. Should he wait for good luck to draw cards, or just ignore it and draw all at once? However, thinking about this, Lin Qun suddenly had a different idea. He was a little curious. In this case, can the Armored Titan card be upgraded? What changes can be made by upgrading the Armored Titan? Could it be that the hard shell armor on his body is directly transformed into titanium alloy steel armor? Chu Yaowei was still closing her eyes to rest. Lin Qun held this Superman card in his hand, groping for the textured card, and fell into deep thought. However, this Superman card is also terrifying enough. In the world of DC, Superman is a ceiling level existence. It is not a problem for him to resist thousands of troops by himself. This is absolute strength. With this card, maybe, Bakayan's figure appeared in front of him. Maybe, it won't take that long to kill Bakayan. Even if his original skills and familiarity will be temporarily invalidated due to the transformation card, that is enough. Isn't Superman's strength enough to sweep the Bakatan army? Unfortunately, this card is also closely related to physique. Lin Qun's physique is only 35 points, which is very exaggerated among humans, but it is still too different from Superman's physique. He can't withstand too long after the transformation, otherwise he will die from this transformation. 3 minutes is enough to do what? However, with the Sanctuary Song card, it should be able to increase 2 more points of physique and continue for 12 seconds. I don't know if this physique can be superimposed with the doubling effect of the Armored Titan's physique. Lin Qun's eyes drop slightly. Another way is to draw more attribute bonus cards. Directly raise the attributes. Adding physique means directly increasing the transformation time. The attribute bonus card drawn from the second level talent ability card pool must not be just 5 points, at least 10 points. Lin Qun guessed. Thinking of this, he suddenly had an idea. I wonder if the ultimate luck can be used in this way. When the luck is added, just say I want an attribute bonus card. Can I draw an attribute bonus card directly? Since my luck is so good, it is normal that I can get whatever I want, right? Lin Qun immediately thought that this plan was feasible. However, the next time he prays for luck, he will have to wait 12 hours, but he can't be impatient. Lin Qun also understands. If there is no 12-hour buffer, he will keep praying for the fairy to see him, and the fairy will definitely get angry. At that time, let alone the ultimate luck, it is possible that he will have bad luck every day, and he will never be able to turn over in this life. After pondering for a moment, Lin Qun carefully put away this Superman transformation card. This card will be his biggest trump card. It is also his biggest confidence. Today, Lin Qun drew a lot of cards. He drew 7 times in total, and got 8 cards, including powerful cards such as Fairy Gaze, Armored Titan, and Superman Transformation card. He was so excited. All of these mean a huge improvement in strength. He has survived the initial accumulation, and next, his combat power will become stronger and stronger like a snowball. However, Lin Qun also looked at them separately. He found that his current headshot girl skill needs 200 contribution points to upgrade. The armored titan card skill needs 300 contribution points to upgrade. And his current talent ability needs a full 2000 contribution points to upgrade. 2000 contribution points sounds exaggerated, but Lin Qun is not surprised. This is normal. The card pool is gradually upgraded, and the effect of the card is getting stronger and stronger. Naturally, more contribution points are needed to upgrade. Lin Qun estimates that the number of contribution points required for the 3rd level talent card drawing ability to draw a card once will definitely be very exaggerated, far exceeding the current 50 points. Lin Qun is looking forward to this. Of course, that's another story. Lin Qun took a deep breath, and while his short infusion was over, he said he was going to the toilet, stood up, walked outside, and immediately exchanged the strawberries. He didn't want to ask others for help in vain, so he prepared to share these strawberries with Chu Yaoi. In this era, strawberries are in short supply and more expensive than gold. Even the real big shots in the survivors base can't eat them. When Chu Yaoi, who had always been calm, saw Lin Qun coming with strawberries, her eyes became staring. She stood up directly, almost thinking that she had seen it wrong. This is Strawberry? Chapter 98, Operation Room. It's a pleasant surprise. We found it in a small refrigerator in front. It should be the private goods of the employees here. Lin Qun took out the prepared words. Chu Yaoi didn't doubt him. After all, Lin Qun couldn't make strawberries out of thin air, but she had some doubts. The refrigerator in this building should have run out of power a long time ago, right? Can we still eat it? Having said that, she took the initiative to stand up and leaned forward. Her bright eyes instinctively looked at the box of strawberries in Lin Qun's hand. Even she couldn't resist the temptation of strawberries. Lucky, it seems to be well preserved. Lin Qun smiled and handed it forward. A box of strawberries, exactly 2 kilograms. Each one is bright and juicy. This is the advantage of the supply card. 2 kilograms of strawberries. Each one is guaranteed to be of excellent quality, and none of them are bad or rotten. And these are just exchanged, very fresh. You are so lucky. These strawberries are so well preserved. Chu Yaoi showed an obvious expression of heartbeat, and instinctively wanted to reach out and take one to eat. At this time, she didn't care whether to wash it or not, but she just reached out her hand, but then paused, looked at Lin Qun, and took it back. This is Lin Qun's thing. He found it here. Lin Qun smiled, put down the strawberries, and said, I can't eat so many, let's eat them together. Thank you for helping me at that time. Chu Yaoi was a little surprised. She looked at Lin Qun, and didn't act pretentiously. She quickly reached out and started eating. However, what Lin Qun found interesting was that although Chu Yaoi ate, she was also very distinct. Lin Qun ate one, she ate one. Lin Qun paused, she also paused, and never ate even one more than Lin Qun. But she ate with her eyes shining, revealing the appearance of a little girl other than the elite girl in the past. Before the end of the world, who still lacks strawberries? But now, this box of strawberries seems to be better than countless delicacies. Lin Qun was also very hungry and ate voraciously. The two of them didn't talk much, and were eating attentively until the box was empty. There was only one left. Chu Yaoi raised her head, blinked like a kitten, and took her hand back. Lin Qun didn't hesitate, and accepted the last one with a smile. The two looked at each other, and fell into silence again. After a moment, Chu Yaoi continued to give Lin Qun acupuncture. Then it was a quiet rest. Chu Yaoi was a very sensible person. She was obviously curious about Lin Qun's ability and strong recovery ability, but she never asked a word more, so Lin Qun didn't ask her more about her situation. In fact, Lin Qun was also a little curious about Chu Yaoi's ability. Being able to take himself out of the siege of the two Bakatan sailing ships is not something that ordinary people can do. Moreover, before landing in advance, this girl's physique had exceeded 16 points. Time passed slowly in silence. This hospital is exceptionally quiet, with good sound insulation. The loud noises and roars from the far end of the city become inaudible here. Lin Qun was thinking about his own abilities. His first reaction to getting the Superman card was actually, I'm not pretending anymore. I'm showing my cards. I'm going to kill my way out. But after thinking about it carefully, he gradually realized that using this card is not that simple. 3 chances. He may not be able to make full use of 3.5 minutes. The more Lin Qun thought about it, the more worried he became. The gap between his strength and Superman's was too big. If he really became Superman, he might not be able to use Superman's power well, and the level he could play was limited. This is like a child driving a big car. If the size and body shape are not suitable, he will be powerless. However, there is still experience. A big car is a big car after all. And the most important thing is that he thought of another ability of Superman, super senses. This is a double-edged sword passive that cannot be turned off. It can enhance people's hearing, vision, and smell by hundreds or thousands of times, making people more acutely aware of everything around them. But this huge amount of information will also directly impact the brain, causing people to have splitting headaches, difficulty in normal activities, or even coma. In the original work, in order to adapt to the super senses, a large amount of information passively poured into the perception. Superman spent his entire childhood learning, adapting, and mastering these abilities, while Zod was able to adapt in a short period of time because he was a natural warrior, but he also lost his combat effectiveness for a time. That was because they were Kryptonians. How long does it take for me to adapt to the super senses? 3.5 days. I'm afraid it won't be enough. This may also be the reason why this card is only sea level. While gaining the power of Superman, you will also have to bear the negative effects of Superman's power. Powerful abilities are both a bonus and a burden. Lin Qun understands that with 3 Superman transformation opportunities, each time he uses it, his mastery of Superman's abilities will be 1 point better, and the more he uses it, the more proficient he will be. But the first time he uses it will definitely be the worst time he uses it. Therefore, he must use these 3.5 minutes carefully and use it at the most critical time as much as possible. He must also be prepared to face the impact of super senses in advance. Try to ensure that you don't faint and can force action. It would be stupid if you fainted or lost your combat power directly like General Zod and his female adjutant Fire in the movie. Even if you are affected, you must fight successfully as much as possible. However, even if you may use it badly, Superman is Superman after all. As long as you don't faint, even if you can only exert half of his combat power, you can crush Bastion. Lin Qun also went around the contribution point mall. Unfortunately, the Kryptonian spacesuit in the movie is an exclusive item and is not available in the mall. Other things that can shield or weaken that level of super senses are weapons, which are aimed at strong people with this kind of ability. The level is extremely high, so it is too expensive. Lin Qun can't afford it at all. Even if he can afford it, Lin Qun has not transformed into Superman to try it, so it is actually difficult to say how effective it is, and whether it can offset the impact of super perception. Of course, with his current contribution point deposit, even if it is cheap, he is too poor to afford it. Unfortunately, there are only 3 chances, otherwise Lin Qun would like to try it once now, to see what the application is like. This superhuman ability can only be explored and practiced in battle. Lin Qun calculated his ability and had a preliminary plan for the next action. This time, it's time for him to settle accounts with Bastion. And in the silence of the two, time passed little by little. Lin Qun's energy has long been full again. With eating and time, he clearly felt that his physical strength was gradually recovering. The effect of high physical fitness is showing. It's just that those wounds still need time to heal. However, that's not important anymore. Lin Qun estimated that he should have enough physical strength to activate the Armored Titan skill now. As long as the activation is successful, he can recover from these injuries in 1 second, which is not a problem at all. And in the past time, Lin Qun has also made new plans. He wants to return to the 6th prison survivor base as soon as possible. The Battle of Sing Sing Square has ended, and the 6th prison survivor base is the next target to bear the brunt. Before this operation, Zhao Yi had informed Lin Qun of the military's plan. Lin Qun was worried that, if he returned too late, the garrison of the survivor base would have been killed and wounded by the Bastion army. So many soldiers died in vain. In the past, Lin Qun had no confidence and was powerless to change all this. But now, he has the Armored Titan skill card in the Superman transformation card. Maybe he can reverse the outcome of the 6th prison survivor base. If the 6th prison survivor base does not fall, it can become Lin Qun's doomsday fortress in the Magic City. But Lin Qun doesn't believe it. The Superman transformation card is still no match for bastion. After the infusion, Lin Qun slowly stood up from his position, stood in front of the window of the inpatient department, and looked at the smoke-filled Magic City outside. At this time, the sky was bright, and from this position, you can even see a corner of the central city. The bastions have several ships that look like engineering spacecrafts located in that position, and they seem to be building something in the central city. Humans are at a disadvantage, and the bastions have gained a foothold step by step, and have begun their reconstruction of the Magic City. They also have their own plans. The bastions are the real contestants, and humans are just unlucky natives. Just like ants and bugs in the stadium of the sports meeting. Chu Yaoi at the back seemed to have sensed something, so she stood up and said, "Aren't you going to rest for a while?" Yeah, the battle can't wait any longer. I want to go back to the 6th prison survivor base. Chu Yaoi couldn't help but say, but as far as I know, the 6th prison survivor base is the next target of the bastions. Bastion has announced that he will defeat the 6th prison survivor base in a shorter time than defeating the emerging survivor base. What she meant was, you have been defeated by Bastion once, and you almost died. If you go now, wouldn't that be courting death? Lin Qun shook his head and said firmly, "This time, I'm sure, and we can't wait for them to eradicate all our survivor bases one by one, and destroy all our manpower, before we take action, right? We should take action when the humans in the Magic City still have the strength to fight. If we can win, we will win. If not, then we will give up completely, and hide and run until the end of the 30 days. Listening to Lin Qun's words, Chu Yao's expression changed slightly. "Then I'll go with you. I also have some fighting power." Lin Qun's last words convinced her. At that moment, they set off directly. Lin Qun had a good physique and recovered well. He could walk on his own, but he still couldn't do strenuous exercise. Looking at him like this, Chu Yaoi was obviously a little suspicious. She didn't know where Lin Qun's confidence came from in his current state. He was clearly going to die quickly. But when they went downstairs, they heard a sound coming from the operating room area at the end of the 3rd floor. The two looked at each other. There is someone over there, or a non-human. Chapter 99 Seeds of Hatred. It was already daytime outside, but the light in the hospital was still a little dim. The sound came from the deepest part of the operating room. Lin Qun and Chu Yaoi looked at each other and stepped forward at the same time. Chu Yaoi took out a rifle on her back. The shoulder gun on Lin Qun's shoulder automatically turned the muzzle. Of course, if you really encounter an enemy, Lin Qun's eyes will definitely be the fastest to attack. The headshot female skill is the best offensive means in an instantaneous confrontation when you meet on a narrow road. The hospital is very quiet. There are bloodstains on the ground, spreading from the stairs all the way to the deepest part of the operating room. Some medical equipment is messy on the ground, and there seems to be lights in the operating room. The hospital's independent backup power supply is still working. It should be a person. Chu Yaoi said softly. This is similar to Lin Qun's judgment. Looking at the situation outside, it should be someone who is injured. If the Bastion people are injured, they can't run to the human hospital. This looks more like a human saving himself. They walked forward slowly. The person inside seemed to be alert and noticed the movement outside. The sound in the operating room suddenly quieted down, and the lights suddenly stopped in the next second. Lin Qun and Chu Yaoi looked at each other. Lin Qun quietly took out his vibranium shield from the Kyankan bag. Seeing the shield suddenly appearing in Lin Qun's hand, Chu Yaoi was surprised again and looked at Lin Qun deeply. Lin Qun did not explain, nor did he mean to cover up. Immediately, Lin Qun took the lead in pushing open the door. It was dark. It was dead silent. Then, the lights were turned on again. There were large pools of donated blood on the floor of the operating room. A person was sitting on the operating table. She wrapped herself in the blanket in the operating room and turned her head to look at them. She had no weapons. Even her whole body was hidden in the blanket. Only her head and a beautiful but cold face were exposed. Seeing her, Lin Qun was shocked. Because that person was King. Lin Qun never expected to meet her here. King's expression seemed unusually calm. She also recognized Lin Qun. "Thank you, you attracted all the Bakatans. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to see me here. And the way I look now, I can't be considered alive." As she spoke, she slowly lifted her blanket from inside. Her body was exposed. Under the blanket, it was no longer a human body, but a tattered steel body. It was a barrel-shaped body, only about 60 centimeters high. The iron sheet looked very thin. There was an arm mechanical clamp on one side, and a 12.7mm gun muzzle at the front. There was a glass tube-like structure on the top that extended all the way up, and connected to King's head. Seeing this scene, Lin Qun and Chu Yaowei both gasped. Lin Qun just thought that she was sitting cross-legged on the operating table, so he didn't see her legs, but he didn't expect this. In the contribution point mall, Lin Qun had also seen similar things, called cyber equipment, which can replace flesh and blood, with diverse functions and powerful. It can be some war mechas. As long as humans have a brain hidden in it, they can connect to survive. Its technology far exceeds that of humans. If the connection is successful, you can use it as if it were an arm, and it can even be more useful than the original body. Of course, the premise is that you can accept this change. Of course, those high-end ones also need more contribution points. The person King is using now is obviously the cheapest and lowest end. Except for a layer of iron sheet on the outer circle, most of it is plastic, and even the wires are exposed outside in many places. Lin Qun can hardly connect the person in front of him with the stunning fairy-like woman on the battlefield. However, this is the bloody fact in front of him, and this is also the only possibility for her to survive. With such injuries, how can she survive, except taking this path? I only have 260 contribution points, which can only be exchanged for such a cyber body. Fortunately, I had anticipated this day, and my contribution points have hardly been used. I also have to thank my A-level talent, otherwise I would not live to the moment when I can replace my own body. Her mechanical arm slid and slowly closed the blanket to cover her body. Chu Yaowei asked, "Why? It's better to die. It may be worse than death for you, but not for me." King smiled. She could actually laugh. "I kept so many contribution points unused just for this day, to prolong my life for a possible death situation, because I want to live. The Bakatans killed my husband, my children, my father, my mother, and everyone around me. I want to live. I want to live to see the day when they are wiped out. Even if I may not be able to do it, I will do my best to help those who can do it." So, on the battlefield at that time, I knew that if I rushed forward, the best outcome would be this. I don't care, and I didn't hesitate. Compared to this, what does it matter what I become, like a human or a ghost? She said this calmly. These thoughts were no longer as simple as anger for her. Hatred had been engraved into her bones. Lin Qun looked at her and didn't know what to say. If the dead could be resurrected, maybe it would be possible. But at that time, the battle was a race against time, and later Lin Qun was injured and unconscious. Now, King has replaced her body, and it is obviously too late to do anything. Instead, King said, "Don't stand here, do what you need to do, don't worry about me. I can only survive now, and I can't help you for the time being. Don't let me hold you back. I will grow up little by little, and when that day comes, I will appear where you may need me." Lin Qun and Chu Yaowei were silent about these words. Maybe King was stronger than most survivors, but now, she can only start from scratch. Lin Qun and Chu Yaowei respected King's choice and decision. They only found some medicine and food for her, and left in a hurry. King watched them leave from behind, silent. When Lin Qun and his team came out of the East District Hospital, they were ready to head straight to the 6th Prison Survivor Base, or see if they could meet some survivors, and ask about the current situation of the entire DC area. After all, it had been 7 or 8 hours since the battle last night, and Lin Qun was eager to know the situation. But unfortunately, they did not find any survivors, but instead encountered a group of Bakatan armored forces. And this armored force seemed to be searching for Lin Qun and his team, so they found their way here. Lin Qun and his team discovered them early, and Chu Yaowei meant to avoid the sharp edge for the time being, but Lin Qun narrowed his eyes, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Maybe. It's time for the armored titan to appear. Chapter 100 Tartar. Tartar. 2 tanks, 3 airships. I don't know if there are any V-shaped fighters nearby. In your current state, we'd better not confront them head on. At this moment, they were hiding on one side, and Chu Yaowei analyzed calmly. She was ready to retreat. The armored forces of the Bacatans usually carry biological scanning devices or thermal imaging devices. If the distance is shortened, they may be discovered, even if they hide nearby. She agreed with Lin Qun's words, but not with Lin Qun's injuries. But Lin Qun just shook his head. Just stand farther away. If they run away later, I'll leave it to you. Don't worry, I don't mean to be arrogant. Lin Qun's expression was serious. He just observed that the fighter planes were indeed difficult to find, but there were only this Bacatan people nearby, no other Bacatan people, and no sailing ships nearby. If he took action here, he could completely eat them and retreat calmly. At that time, even if there were really V-shaped fighters nearby, without the assistance of ground forces, it would not be able to keep biting Lin Qun and his men. Lin Qun could completely take action calmly, wipe out this armored force and leave quickly. Looking into his eyes, Chu Yaowei was silent for a moment, and began to retreat. Lin Qun narrowed his eyes. His armored titan was not an ordinary armored titan. It was an enhanced version equipped with a headshot girl skill, Mario Strength and Mario Jump. This armored unit allowed him to test the ability of his armored titan in this state. Of course, Chu Yaowei was right. He couldn't wait for the Bacatans to get close and discover him before taking action. Otherwise he would lose the initiative. Chu Yaowei retreated step by step. She was also ready for battle. She held a rifle in one hand and a titanium alloy hatchet in the other. The hatchet was an exchange item. She arched her body like a female leopard ready to pounce. Her combat experience was not bad either. But her eyes were fixed on Lin Qun, wanting to see how Lin Qun, who couldn't even run away now, would be the main force against the Bacatans' armored forces. After all, from what Lin Qun said just now, it was Lin Qun who wanted to fight head on, and asked her to assist from the side. And soon, Chu Yaowei's pupils widened in shock. Because Lin Qun's body had become a giant again. Not only did he transform into a giant again, but he was taller and more terrifying than before. His body expanded directly to a height of 15 meters. On top of his blood-red muscles, there was a layer of terrifying armor. What kind of ability is this? Last time, Lin Qun used the giantization effect card, which was just proportionally enlarged, but this time, he transformed into the armored titan. However, the transformation of a giant is often related to the original appearance of the transformer. The armored titan transformed by Lin Qun is different from the armored titan transformed by Reina in the real giant animation. Although it is not a proportional transformation, it can be seen that this is the shadow of Lin Qun. Moreover, in the state of giant transformation, the giant body outside is not Lin Qun's body. His body has been deeply buried in the flesh and blood of the giant body. In other words, in this state, Lin Qun is like driving a giant mecha body in a fully immersive way, but this mecha is purely made of flesh and blood. Even if the body in the giant form is injured, as long as the body inside the body is not injured, Lin Qun is not injured. Not only that, the giant form will be lifted, and Lin Qun's original injuries will also be directly restored. The giant ability is definitely a very strong ability that can be used for both offense and defense on the battlefield. At this moment, Lin Qun couldn't hide his excitement. He even wanted to shout a few words. Giant, come on stage. One person against a small-scale Bacatan armored force. This is also an unprecedented challenge for Lin Qun. It is something he couldn't do, and didn't dare to do before. But now, he will fight. Under the giantization, he can sink the sailing ship. Now that the armored titan has transformed, he is stronger than when he was giantized, and he has the strength to fight a Bacatan armored force head-on. At this moment, Lin Qun's attributes are comprehensively improved. Physical fitness and energy are all doubled. What surprised Lin Qun was that his energy doubled, but it was not the upper limit that doubled, but his existing available energy doubled, which directly made Lin Qun's energy break through the sky. Can it be like this? At this moment, Lin Qun's attributes are already name, Lin Qun. Level 10, 7900/16,000, Strength 57 Agility, 34 Constitution, 70 Stamina, 64/32 Talent, Card Draw Bonus Ability Strength 57, Agility 34, Constitution as high as 70. With such values, I'm afraid that even in the entire Magic City, there is no human with higher panel attributes than Lin Qun. Moreover, except for agility, the others are all above 50 points. With such attributes, it is impossible for a human to be higher than Lin Qun in the entire East District. Among the Bastions, Lin Qun can also walk sideways. With 64 points of energy, even if only 6 points are left, he can still headshot 29 times crazily without taking drugs. And now he can kill all creatures with less than 140 points of constitution in seconds. None of the Bastions present can withstand his gaze. At the same time, Lin Qun simultaneously activated Mario Power. On the original basis, it was improved again. Directly became 85.5. The strength attribute also reached the height that Lin Qun had before. But he did not use Mario's careless skill. After all, this was the first time to use the armored titan to transform. Lin Qun was worried that he would pull up his physique, but his brain would not work well, and he would cause some problems. Moreover, with his current attribute, it was enough. Lin Qun felt that his body was full of explosive power. The world in front of him was clearer than ever before. Chu Yaowei, who was nearby, became very small. Chu Yaowei was also surprised. This Lin Qun was obviously beaten like that. How could he still transform? Not only can he still transform, but the form he transformed into now is obviously more powerful than before. But Chu Yaowei is a practical person. Seeing Lin Qun show his strength, she immediately moved, turned around, and ran directly into another street, preparing to outflank from the side. And Lin Qun directly attacked head-on. In fact, he had no other choice if he didn't attack head-on, because his existence had been discovered by the Bastions. Such a huge giant appeared out of thin air. Of course, the Bastions could not fail to notice it. Lin Qun strode forward, facing the dense bullets fired by the Bastions. He did not evade at all, and strode forward to charge. Under the protection of the strong armor of the armored titan, those bullets and machine guns could only penetrate the armor at most, and could not hurt Lin Qun inside. Even if there were occasional bullets that penetrated, the giant's body was almost unaffected, and it could not cause any injury to Lin Qun's body. Facing the muzzles of 2 tanks and airships, Lin Qun directly picked up 2 scrap tubs from the ground, and used them as shields in front of him. When they were blown up, he picked up 2 more. Anyway, the streets are now full of scrapped vehicles. Lin Qun accelerated little by little. Every step of his huge body seemed to tremble, as if half of the street was shaking. He rushed towards the Bastions array with unstoppable force, facing the Bastions' artillery fire. During the charge, wherever he looked, the Bastions were shot in the head one after another. At that moment, seeing such a giant human rushing towards them recklessly, all the Bastions present trembled. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.